Hello and welcome to Le Mans 2020. The strangest race that has ever been seen at this track is likely to be getting underway this weekend. But once the cars go out on track, once the visors click down into place, all of the differences surrounding the teams and the cars, those are likely to vanish. So much is different here, but so much is the same, and hopefully we'll be able to bring you wherever you are. I know a lot of you would be hoping to be here and couldn't be this year. We will be bringing you hopefully as much coverage as you can possibly handle over the next few days. My name's Martin Haven, Alan McNish and Graham Goodwin, regular World Endurance Commentary team here. We have our colleagues Ben Constantiouris, Jamie Campbell-Walter and Peter Dumbreck also as part of our in-booth, on-air commentary team. And pits reporters Hayley Edmonds and Alex Legui will be bringing you information from the pits. And of course the circuit remains the same, the cars remain the same, the time of year and so much else has changed. Graham Goodwin, the moment engines fire up though, the new normal becomes a lot more recognisable, doesn't it?
It most certainly does. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world and watching this. Normal begins in just a few minutes when those engines fire up, and I think we'll all be grateful for that after what's been a very different few months, hasn't it, for everybody around the planet, in particular our family in motorsports. 59 cars here, and what a glittering display they make down pit lane. Some real differences to actually talk about, some really new looking cars and liveries, including this one. This is one of the two Porsche 911 RSR 19s from the factory Porsche team. Panis Racing, one of the teams on Goodyear. Some last-minute preparations going on there. This is the Risi Competizione team, the three French drivers.
And one of only a couple of cars that have come over from the US this year. One of the big absences in the GT Pro classes, there's no Corvette racing because of the pandemic restrictions. Corvette had decided quite early that it was unlikely to be possible to come and race at Le Mans. So a long string of participation from Doug Feehan and his boys, very sadly interrupted rather than
that's
come
the right
to a halt.
Word, is interrupted.
Yeah.
Here is the number 71 car from AF Corsa, one of the two factory backed GT Pro Ferraris from AF Corsa. 13 cars being handled by Marta Ferrari team.
And look at the weather, it is absolutely scorchio here. There is a forecast for a lot of rain, potentially in fairly heavy bursts in Saturday. But we'll get to that. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Let's talk about how the week is progressing, because normally Le Mans normally begins with a test weekend, which hasn't happened. Normally the event itself begins on Sunday and Monday in the centre of town with scrutineering. Because of COVID-19, that hasn't happened. Scrutineering was in the scrutineering bay at the track on Wednesday, yesterday, and the track went live at midnight as a full race circuit rather than the public roads. It will now not close until Sunday night, not open again until Sunday night to the general public. So track action started at 8:30 this morning with Road to Le Mans, free practice for them. Free practice 1 for our World Endurance teams was 10 till 1 today. There are a couple of red flags for cars going off, but no major incidents, no major damage to talk about. This afternoon, we will run through free practice 2. Cars will go out on track at 2 o'clock, and at 5 p.m. that will be checkered flagged. And then on Thursday, of course, we then will normally go into night practice. On Wednesday, didn't have that, and on Thursday we will have practice this evening, but we will also have qualifying. So qualifying begins just after 5 o'clock, 5:15 till 6 p.m. qualifying for Le Mans, and then FP3.
Correct.
But we won't know the grid after qualifying because there's a whole new element coming in tomorrow, Graham, for the fastest cars in the field.
It's Hyperpole. It's a new innovation this year that was planned well before all the other external factors, and that will see the top 6 cars in each of the classes, obviously top 5 in LMP1, with 2 brand new sets of tyres for each car for that session, going head-to-head to define the top end of the grid in each class. And the hope is that that will give you at home watching the opportunity to see these cars in extremis as quick as they will go on a track that will be populated only by the quickest, and not with too much traffic, one would think, or hope.
Just saw Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich there, one of the ACO's advisors, of course the head of Audi's successful campaigns here for so many years. He's fully embraced the summer vibe, hasn't he? Alan McNish is looking a little bit summery as well. Good afternoon, Alan.
Well, good afternoon. It's good to be here, and it's good to be here in September when it is sunny as well, when you say that. Just looking at the weather forecast, and it says it's going to be officially very hot today and tomorrow.
It is like a hot June weekend, isn't it? So the fact that we're 3 months later doesn't say we're in Indian summer here. It's beautiful conditions. And yeah, the tyre manufacturers particularly, we're all talking about the fact, as you know, when the temperature drops, the air temperature drops, particularly the track temperature drops once the sun's gone off it, then you can run a softer tyre, which allows the car to go quicker. The air is cooler, a little denser, you get that power boost, and the evening nighttime laps, there will be more of them. It'll be cooler for longer. The sun goes down, in theory, right about 7 p.m., comes up about 7 p.m., so there should be, quote, 12 hours of darkness, of which maybe 8 or 9 of those, and then extending further into the daylight, will be run on a more of a nighttime tyre. So the tyre companies are saying, unless there is a lot of bad weather, this could be the fastest Le Mans ever run.
Yeah, in theory, that's certainly the case. I think the times naturally do drop off for the majority of the runners at night. Even although you are running a softer tyre, even although the air's denser, you've got a little bit more downforce. But with that, it didn't take into effect the fact that we're actually significantly hotter track temperatures than expected. And so from that perspective, then, with the tyre choices being done probably 2 months ago now, when they were predicting it was still going to be cooler, and I'm sure there's been a few sort of people running around scratching heads. But when you mentioned the weather forecast, we talked about it being very hot today and tomorrow. However, there's typically thunderstorms that are expected sometime over Saturday, just to bring a little bit of chaos into what is already going to be chaos for 24 hours.
Of course, it always rains at Le Mans. You know, we know this is a fact. Sometimes it rains a lot and for a very long time. Sometimes it rains very little during the evening. But you know, this end of the year, you quite often get that really big build-up of thunderheads from the humidity and from the high ambient. Stake which on the Toyota Gazoo Racing pit board, and a Justin Wilson sticker on the headsets, which is always nice to see the width, the breadth and the variety of motorsport enthusiasm. You might earn your living in sports car racing or touring car racing or single-seaters, but so many guys who love this because they love mechanical things, love all sorts of motorsport and planes and trains and automobiles and everything else in between. Well, there's the glamour of a mechanic's job, Alan. cleaning the
rubber marks, but also
tire scuffs, the flies out of the grills.
It's very important, and especially here because we talk about downforce, but it's the efficiency of downforce. And on the nose of the car, and also the front leading edge of rear wing, as we're seeing the Dempsey Proton Racing's Porsche GTE AM car, the front leading edge of the rear wing, those are two things you want to try to keep clean, because ultimately it does create drag, but it also reduces downforce as well. One of the Aston Martins that was actually quickest in GTE Pro this morning in the first session, and it's obviously had a little bit of a rub on the left front. There was a small little tyre mark.
Kazuki Nakajima in the number 8 Toyota, getting ready to head out. New driver in that winning lineup of the last 2 Le Mans 24 hours is Brendan Hart. It's a long way back, isn't it? Kind of super season, we had 2 24 hours in what was, quote, then the longest season ever. This is the longest gap between Le Mans 24-hour races, and it's still in the same season that started back in September 2019. We're still in that season, and that's going to continue to December. So it's actually going to be longer than Super Season was.
Martin, you've confused me.
I know, I know.
We're here at Le Mans. We've got double points, a 24-hour race to come up. It's going to be part of what is going to be a hard-fought World Championship for a lot, especially in this category, GTE Pro, Graham, because we've seen every single player in that. There's 8 cars in it, but every single one of them has been in the fight and winning races all the way through.
It's been a great season at WEC for the GTE Pro teams. The balance of performance has been pretty much spot on for most of the season, and wheel-to-wheel, door-to-door, and often closer than that action at every single race. We've got those 2 Well, you know, the two wild cards, if you like, Risi Competizione with the all-French lineup, they're looking good here. Always bring a car that is spotlessly prepared. That will be an interesting one. The other car in GT Pro, that is a real wild card. That's WeatherTech Racing. They've decided to come to GT Pro for reasons of deciding they wanted to determine who was going to be in that car. So it's going to be silver driver, a gold car, a gold driver, and a platinum driver, and they think that gives them some advantages in terms of driver time. We shall see.
Well, they've got Tony Villander in that car, and he's certainly going to be one that will be relishing the challenge of that.
Feisty is his middle name. It's great to see him back here. A man that's, of course, won here in Class B4. Good shot here of the other of the two Porsche GT Pro cars, the matte red coloured car. And if you were tuning in earlier in the year to Virtual Le Mans, you recognise that livery, because the liveries on the 91 and 92 cars are basically exactly the same, with one important difference to the cars that were presented in virtual form by Porsche. The one difference is there is a tribute to the 1970 winning Porsche 917, 50 years and a couple of months ago.
Yep. The year after the last September Le Mans, which of course was back in 1969, and the 1970 race is famed particularly because of what feature of the starting procedure.
That was the first one where we did not have the drivers running across the track.
It was the first one that didn't feature running across the track. That was in 1969. Jackie Ickx sauntered, trying to look calm and hoping to God he wasn't going to get hit by somebody starting quickly, and then ended up winning in the GT40, the closest finished ever. But in 1970, they did away with that for safety reasons, and it featured the only ever engines off standing start for Le Mans, and that is what many people still think Le Mans starts are, because it was featured in the Steve McQueen film Le Mans. So that was the only time that starting procedure was ever used. In 71 they did a rolling start, which we use since.
Yeah.
And the reason that they stopped the running start is that drivers were herring off and some of them didn't do their seatbelts up, and for safety reasons that was devoutly not to be wished.
Well, from history gone past to history future, quick shot there of one of the debuting teams this year at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. That was the number 24 Nielsen Racing car. Their debut in LMP2. They come courtesy of a championship win in LMP3, regular race winners around the world in LMP3 in the Asia Le Mans series. Young man here eyeing this one, well, as he might with some relish. That was Phil Hansen from the number 22 United Autosports team, and what a season, what a year they are having so far. 6 wins for that team, 5 of them by the 22 car across the European Le Mans series and the ELMS.
Well, now there's a set of overalls that we are likely to see a little bit more of. Peugeot Sport. Well, there is a lot of news coming out in the last 10 or so days. Well, there has been a lot of news coming out. I guarantee there's going to be more from the virtual press conference that the ACO will hold tomorrow. That Peugeot Sport are already starting to make noises about returning to the top tier of racing at Le Mans, which will be very entertaining indeed to see. So let's get back to the present time, a 3-hour session. De Vries about to join for Racing Team Nederland as cars start to form up at pit out.
Yep, that's one of a large number as usual, of champions we've got here. The reigning now F2 champion, Nick De Vries, and recently appointed as the test and development driver for Toyota for their forthcoming hypercar program for the 2021 season. Remember, this is the last time here at Le Mans we're going to see these monstrous LMP1 hybrids. What a fantastic era that has been. One more race to come after this for the TSO 50 Toyotas. Bahrain. Dragon Speed, one of a number of 2-car LMP2 teams here.
And one of a number of teams that have come in from Michelin Le Mans Cup and from the European Le Mans Series, where they've been cutting their teeth for the last few years. We've got 2 teams in LMP2 who come from Michelin Le Mans Cup who have never raced an LMP2 car. So for both of those teams, it is going to be all about learning ferociously quickly and desperately trying to get a finish above all else out of this. For some teams, like the Jota Sport team, like G-Drive here, they're regular winners. They understand the cars, the discipline of Le Mans, of the cars themselves in LMP2, and they will be right on the money from the very start. And LMP2 is an expanded field as well. There are a lot of 24 cars in LMP2, so it is a massive entry and hugely competitive. And GTE AM has kind of exploded this year as well, both in terms of depth and the quality of the field as ever. It's just getting better and better. The AMs are getting faster and faster, and so is the machinery.
5 cars in LMP1, 8 in GTE Pro, 22 cars for GTE AM, and 24 cars in that LMP2 field that Martin was just describing. This is the number 61 car. This is the Lutic Racing entered car, one of, as we said a little earlier in the show, number of AF Corsa assisted cars, as are the 3 Iron Lynx cars. This is a team that got another late entry, so 3 Iron Lynx cars, Italian brand. And this, the 85 pink livery car, different number for those that are more familiar with the European Le Mans series, but the 85 car is the Iron Dames car. The Iron Dames car with Rahel Fry, Michel Gatting, Manuel Augusta. 35 car here is one of the 3 Ligier chassis in LMP2. This is the Eurasia Motorsport car, the car coming out of the Asian Le Mans series, though they have raced here before and in the European Le Mans series, but great to see them back at Le Mans with a stunningly liveried car.
Yeah, that's not based on everybody's pest of the summer, is it? Liveried like a wasp, never popular. And the Jumbo Supermarkets Racing Team Netherlands car, as ever. Frits van Aert, the boss of Jumbo Supermarkets, he's the man who's put this team together. And their little Racing Team Netherlands badge you can see there, based on his favourite Formula 1 team, Minardi.
Celebrate 2 last Le Mans for the Rebellion Racing Team. What a fine history they've had here. 2 cars they bring here for their last planned appearance at Le Mans at the moment, and another returnee. In fact, 2 returnees here. One is the livery, the, I think, iconic Felbermayr livery, but also one of the drivers, Horst Felbermayr Jr., coming back to this race for the first time since 2011 and commemorating in fine fashion his father, Horst Felbermayr Sr., passed away earlier this year.
About 20 years ago, the Felbermayrs, Horst Sr. and Jr., and Gerald and Christian Reed were both run by Proton Competition, weren't they?
They were.
And the Felbermayr with that blue livery. It's nice to see them back. Of course, Christian Reed with the Proton Competition team, with Dempsey Proton as well, are here. So, keeping that circle going, and it's nice to see that the stalwart privateer teams over the last 2 decades of GT racing are still involved.
And that's going to continue. 4 cars here for the Proton Competition family, and they've already got in the garage, back at base, 4 new Porsche 911 RSR 19s for their programs next year. They'll be starting testing on those cars in the coming couple of weeks, and then we'll start to hear from Christian and his crews what their plans are for 2021. There is no lack of enthusiasm for the future of endurance racing, and after what we're going to hear tomorrow, that's only going to be boosted even further.
First few laps out on track were completed this morning for our full Le Mans field, and now into free practice 2, this 3-hour session. It is another gorgeous, hot, sunny day, but look at the leaves around the track. That is a first visual indicator that it is not high summer, but it is actually early autumn. And actually, if the wind starts to pick up, all of those early fallen leaves are going to be a bit of a factor. Just saw the Toyota going down through the S's. Track is still pretty green. The Toyota is definitely skating around at both ends, so need to get some rubber down on this track. Don't forget, there's only been cars on track since 8 this morning. We should normally be a full day of track activity in by now.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course the airflow from these cars isn't going to help those leaves to hang on very much longer, is it either? This morning, quickest car and quickest driver was Kazuki Nakajima, and the number 8 Toyota Gazoo Racing TSO 50 Hybrid, a 3:21.656, the quickest time in LMP1. LMP2, that fastest lap time went the way of the high-class racing car and Kenta Yamashita, the reigning Super GT champion, another one of those champions He went through this morning with a 3:29.873. We'll get to the GT times when we get to talking about those classes, Martin.
Well, that fastest time was only 45 thousandths of a second, over a 13.18 kilometre lap, quicker than Racing Team Netherlands, the quickest time set in that car by Nick de Vries, we believe. So, yeah, and the two Toyotas were 33 hundredths apart. So 0.3 of a second between car number 8 to car number 7. Of course, car number 8, Sebastian Buemi, Kazuki Nakajima, going for a hat-trick of wins. Does that mean they get to keep the cars and the trophies and the pit building and everything, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so, pretty much.
I'll check the rule book on that one later.
What it is, you have that much steering, it's impossible to use the clutch. I had a lot of throttle with both hands on the clutch pedal, but it's impossible. Copy, mate. I need something from you. Is CC reset to 666. CC reset, please.
666, that's the reset number of the beast, obviously. I like the button top right there, not the pit radio, the one that just says, kill, kill, kill. I'm assuming that's kill all the electronics and you know, emergency panic, but you sort of hope it's like for missiles or something. There you go, top right, bright red, kill.
Is it me? I've never noticed it before, but we hear him again. We all talk about phone voices, don't we?
Yeah.
Has Gustavo Menezes got a slightly French accent to his radio voice? Because I think he did.
Well, what you get here is not only a good idea of just how enclosed the driver is with high cockpit sides, with the surrounds, the seat and everything. You've got a good view there. That screen that said green on it, that is the safety system used by race control. There's one of those screens in every single car, and it'll tell them when they're in a green flag zone, a yellow flag zone, if there's a slow zone coming up, if there's a safety car, a red flag. Black and white flag being applied to their car will show in the car, and the race director can tell them which turn number they are exceeding track limits on and being watched for and so on. So it's a real step forward in terms of
in car Eduardo.
Yeah, well, and drivers being aware of things that they can't necessarily see and that the team may not be able to radio them about. So
I should say, by the way, this morning's free practice session, we had 174 of the 177 drivers here this weekend have already turned laps. Rather fewer at the moment, of course, this point in, Alan.
And there was also, Graham, some that had to do the obligatory minimum number of laps, which normally is done at a test day where you have to do 10 laps. So some drivers that haven't been to this circuit before, because of the nature of the track, it's kind of a bit unforgiving. Then you normally have to have a half day on the simulator, which is near Paris, and then you also have to have 10 laps, which can be throughout the day, don't have to be consecutive, which is done at the test day. However, with no test day, then that had to be done, or has to be done today prior to the qualifying, and there's a few drivers that were having to actually turn their first laps here.
Absolutely. The only 3 drivers, by the way, that didn't turn laps this morning, all those drivers have driven in recent years. They were Jules Gounon from Racing Competizione, Vincent Abril made his debut here last year, as did Jules, by the way, this time in the 70 MR racing car, and the 11 Euro International car, Eric Maurice, who's had multiple starts in LMB2 and GTE. Inside the Racing Competizione garage.
Yeah, and talking about the pros, let's talk about who was quickest. Well, Aston Martin went 1-2, 97 ahead of 95. 97 is Maxime Martin, Alex Lynn and Harry Tinknell, late of the Ford Parish. And 95 is the Dane train, so Nicky Team at Marco Sorensen and renowned Dane Richard Westbrook from Bath,
Denmark.
Bath in Denmark. AF Corsa 3rd and 4th, 51-71. Those are their regular championship teams, ahead of Risi's number 82 and the WeatherTech 83 car. Risi with Ollie Pla, Sebastian Bourdais and Jules Gounon. And WeatherTech with Cooper McNeil, who's the WeatherTech affiliate there, Tony Vielander and Jeff Seagal. So the Porsches were the Lanterne Rouge at the tail of the field. There is your Spa 24-hour race winner, Jules Gounon. And so Michael Christensen, Kevin Estre teamed up with Lawrence Vantor. And Jimmy Bruni, Richard Leeds teamed with Fred Makaviki in 91.
Long lingering shots of another of the teams that have got to this race by dint of achievements last season. Number 11 Euro International, the reigning ELMS LMP3 champions. But that's a team with a history here that goes back into the 90s and back into the days of the Ferrari 333. Back in the days, Antonio Ferrari, the team principal, their grandson of Enzo Ferrari.
So we watch the Nielsen. We watch Nielsen Racing coming through and dipping down. The car behind it is actually just gone quickest. Nick de Vries third overall in the LMP2 car, a 3:27.884, 2 seconds quicker than what was achieved this morning.
Yep.
And we know Nick is very quick, and it's not just because his name rhymes with quick, but they're really pushing, and I would say that it's going to be a pretty good battle, Graham, because you've also got the Goodyear runners as well, as we see here, with a couple of the Jackie Chan DC Racing and Jota cars.
We're looking at a little bit of rehearsal of what the teams are doing coming in and out of the pits, but also with race direction, preparing to throw a slow zone at Marshall's post 29. Which is 2.9 kilometres in, so that's around Tertre Rouge, isn't it? Maybe down towards the first chicane. Is that?
No, it's
25. The first chicane?
it's about the first chicane.
Yeah. So then
you've obviously never ran this circuit.
I very nearly did yesterday, but sleep was more important.
But we let you back in the car.
Yeah. Ooh, a little twitchy there, isn't it?
It's a bit bumpy coming into there, and you're also carrying a lot of speed, and you need to have a very, very good turn-in, and you need a sharp front end. And but it's a little bit twitchy. It's okay for one lap. They're second overall, actually, in the LMP2 category. That's the SOS Haas by Graf, and it's Charles Milesi at the wheel. But it's not something you would want that car balance for 24 hours. You want to try and get that settled down. So the front, it's not that the rear needs to be more stable, it's the front
10,
needs to be slightly
9,
less
8,
direct
7,
on that first initial
6,
point.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slow zone 8 is enforced. Slow zone 8 is
what
enforced.
The inside of race control normally looks like. You heard the voice of Eduardo Freitas. He was the gentleman with the glasses. And sitting a little closer to us on the left-hand side, the nameplate says Lisa Weishart. Well, Lisa hasn't aged well in that case since we saw her last at Spa. That is not Lisa Weishart, who is his right-hand woman. And they have introduced a slow zone there, which goes through Marshall's post 30 and 33. The posts are named, supposed to be named after how many kilometres they are into the track. So it's now saying that there is a slow zone through the Porsche curves. Marshall's post 30, I thought that was more like Marshall's post 100 or something. However, that's what you see at a slow zone. You have to come down within 5 seconds of the thing. No, that's full course yellow. You have to come down to 80 kilometers an hour before you hit the slow zone line. So there'll be a little, there is a next slow zone, which is where you decelerate from one Marshall's post to the next, and then you hit the slow zone line 80 kilometers an hour until you pass out of the sector where you get green flags, and then you can pick up to speed again. So it's a way of dealing with localized problems that don't neutralize the rest of the track.
One quick point, Alan's absolutely correct, by the way. Charles Milesi in the So24 Haas by Graf 39 car is indeed
snappily named.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Second quickest in LMP2. But to show how quick at the moment Nick de Vries is, 5 seconds slower than Nick de Vries' time is the gap in class right now.
Here are
heading for pit lane.
Here are our leaders in the European Le Mans Series. Top class in that is LMP2. United Autosports number 22 car has won the last 2 races there, Spa and their second trip to Le Castellet. They were on the podium in the first trip as well. It was a 1-2-23 ahead of 22. And that car, Phil Hansen, Felipe Albuquerque, won their third straight European Le Mans Series race at Spa.
15 seconds to remove slow zones.
The weekend before we were there with World Endurance.
Yeah, that team now
10,
3 consecutive
9,
wins in the
8,
World Endurance Championship.
7,
3 consecutive
6,
wins in
5,
the
4, 3, 2, 1. Slow zones removed. Slow zones removed.
3 consecutive wins in ELMS, one of which was the 32 at the start of the race, the season, and then the 22 in dominant form thereafter. And it's been, frankly, a pleasure to watch them going about their work, even after a strategic error at Paul Ricard, the drivers did an astounding job in pretty ropey conditions.
Well, less a strategic error, but more a gamble that didn't quite go their way. It was a wet to dry race, and they put Phil Hansen out on slicks, or left him out on slicks, longer perhaps than they might ideally have liked to have done. Worth pointing out, of course, the third driver in that car, another big fan of the Tunnocks, is Paul de Resta, and so he will be doing his stints in that car as well. 3 drivers mandatory for all these cars in the prototype class, and if you've got any sense whatsoever, you won't try and make 2 drivers do 24 hours in a hot closed GT car either.
Yeah, glorious to see in-car as the car came through Tête Rouge there and onto the Hunaudière. As Nakajima runs across to the pit perch.
Fastest so far, on board with a 92 Porsche, which was second slowest, or 7th fastest. I'm not sure how you'd skin that particular one if you're a Porsche PR person.
Good opportunity there to see just how quickly that LMP1 Toyota accelerates away from what is a very rapid GT car, Alan.
But the thing that was interesting for me was if you saw the speed delta in the middle of the chicane, actually wasn't that much. The GT cars have got a heck of a lot of grip in that medium and low speed environment, and it's only really on the acceleration and the very high speed sections like Indianapolis and Porsche where the LMP cars are significantly quicker in corner apex speed.
Yeah. When we get into the race proper, one of the cards in the deck that Toyotas most certainly have is that punch out the corners. The ability to punch through traffic is going to be a key one, and particularly if we do get mixed conditions, which look like they're going to be predicted. In terms of pure lap time, not a huge amount, I'd have thought, here now between the Rebellions and the Toyotas.
Well, now, the thing that Toyota were looking forward to, Alan, is that they lose all of that sort of performance inhibiting weight and reduction of power and so on that they've had in World Endurance, and they get a full Le Mans spec car back. So that's particularly the drivers are looking forward to having a car that behaves as it does.
I think the bigger factor is the performance over 24 hours, their ability to actually deliver a consistent performance over that period of time. Partly because they've run this technology for such a long time now. They've developed it, they understand it, they're now on the finite details of it as opposed to necessarily any major sort of breakthroughs. And that means that, you know, it's usually it's not very often that they'll have failures, but sometimes they do happen.
Aside from, we saw that massive period of development with the LMP1 hybrids, the Audi, Porsche, Toyota era, with massive gains made in terms of the ability to actually keep energy in. And
that's the Euro International number 11 car that we were praising so highly a little earlier on. Actually, I was admiring the bodywork of that. So who is at the wheel of that car? Is that
Adrien Tombe is at the wheel.
Tombe, okay.
And he's just got his nosed in. It looks like it could be down near Arnage corner.
Yeah. Look at the centre of the angle of it. There, you could see the Ligier logo, one of only 2 Ligiers in the LMP2 class, and Ligier, of course, based here in the Technopole 3, Graham says, based here in the Technopole at Le Mans. Let's hear from Lawrence Van Toor.
Quickly, how is the car? Better overall grip. Tendency of rear being snappy and difficult to control, the same. Also locking on rear, on braking still the same, which is higher overall grip. So the problems had before are much less, but they're still kind of there.
Ladies and gentlemen, professional racing driver.
And you get a professional download, don't you? How is the car? You know, that is the most open question there is. And he's just going, yeah, well, what we talked about, that and that's a bit better. That's not much changed, and we need to work on that still. So, you know, that's a constant update. And you can do that in engineering briefings till the cows come home. But when the driver's out on the track and the things are fresh in his mind, then you can start to work around that. So you can see leaves blowing all over the place. Look at the side of the track. I've never seen Le Mans like that. Yeah, never.
By the way, 92 car are only defending champions as the 11 car gets away. That was indeed Arnage corner. Well done, Alan.
Good spot. Alan knows his tyre barriers. He does.
Sorry. The 92 car, the only one of our defending champions with the same crew as won the race last year.
Ah, yes. Little bit of action here in Euro International, guys. The lollipop man is so busy trying to wake the crew up that he spears one of the commissaires with his lollipop.
That was Antonio Ferrari.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, the car didn't seem like there was very much damage. 33 high-class racing. This is the car that was fastest of all in the first free practice session, thanks to Japanese Toyota prodigy Kenta Yamashita, sharing with Mark Patterson, who is old enough to be his dad.
Significantly so.
And Anders Fjordbach, who ditto is old enough to be his dad. And those two, actually, Mark Patterson and Anders Fjordbach. Fjordbach particularly, lots of experience with high class. Mark Patterson has raced here in prototypes. Actually, do you know what? I wonder if anybody has raced here with more teams.
Yeah, Manu Collard.
Yes.
Manu Collard in his 24th start here at Le Mans.
With 23 different teams.
Absolutely, it would have been 23 last year, and that's a problem for the 85R?
Yeah, this is the Iron Dames, one of 3 Iron Lynx Ferraris. Manuela Gosner, Rahel Frey and Michelle Gatting.
Yeah, going slowly, but nothing apparent. That just doesn't seem to have a puncture. It's not down on any particular corner that I was able to see there.
Which, as ever, are all the wheels on it? Yes. Is it in the barriers? No. In that case, it's electronics. It looks like something's gone into limp home mode, doesn't it? Yeah,
something's awry, and there's the 11 back into the pits. That was the car we saw off at Arnage Corner. Adrian Tombe at the wheel. Son of the legendary
Patrick.
Yes, thank you very much. Patrick Tombe.
And of course, Michelle Gatting, son of England, a daughter of England cricketer, Mike.
No.
And also there's the 38 going quite slowly. That's on an out lap, which is Anthony Davidson at the wheel. We saw him in the pits, but he's going slowly and very much offline.
And weaving. I think he thinks something's loose on that car.
Yeah. Well, they were working on the front, weren't they? Looked like I don't know, sway bar, I don't know, whatever's in the pedal box. So they're working on something there, and this is his out lap, and he's obviously not entirely happy. So he's nudged the tyres, the Euro International car, not significantly, but that's probably a 40,000 euro splitter up the Swanee, isn't it? Luckily, Ligier is a 5-minute walk from the back of the pit, so they'll be able to go and find one even if they didn't have one.
85 back into the pits. Still work going on that #1 Rebellion. And the Bicolis, by the way, being backed in too. And off the track, actually, the Ford chicane in front of us is the sister Rebellion, but regaining the track #3. That's, I think, just a slight fumble from whoever's at the wheel of the 3 is Louis Delatraz, one of our numerous Le Mans rookies this year. Another son of a racing father, Jean-Denis Delatraz.
Jean-Denis, yeah.
Formula 1 and here at Le Mans.
Well, talking about
and
racing sons of racing fathers, there's a few in that car.
And so, Mr. Delatraz, in this car, what is his biggest success of the year so far?
He won at the Virtual Le Mans.
Correct.
There you go.
However, that's nothing to say that he can't actually repeat the feat here coming in September. I've got to say that one.
Now,
that would be a hell of a story.
That would be unique. Winning Le Mans in June and winning Le Mans in September.
But having watched him in the junior categories of F3 and F2 and things, then, you know, he's definitely a very capable driver. I know his father extremely well because I used to race against him. Yep. He was much older than I was, obviously, but I have to say that the son is a chip off the old block and a very, very fast chip as well.
Absolutely. We've got to mention, but we talked about Adrian Tombe back some time ago, and Adrian didn't race here in the car, but raced, I believe, at Daytona in the Bugatti, the EB110, back in the 90s. And was
Patrick. Adrian was definitely too young to race an EB110.
Dinner with no less a person that, well, someone Alan will know very well, Dieter Gash from Audi, who told me he was working on that programme. We were both trying to remember which famous driver it was that had actually been at the wheel at Daytona, when reminded by Adrian, sitting next to him, that it was his dad.
That would have been my dad, yeah. When Adrian was probably 3 or 4 or 5. Looking here at the United Autosports number 23 car sweeping down into Esses de la Chapelle. 22 car, there you go. That was a 50-50 guess, wasn't it? And I guessed the wrong way. So Phil Hansen, Felipe Albuquerque and Paul Di Resta. We saw Albuquerque sitting patiently at the wheel at the beginning of the session, waiting to be released. And it is him at the wheel of the car at the moment.
When we get, we're in fact talking now, that's Nick Tandy in the G-Drive Belga Pro. I think the last addition to the grid, the number 16 car.
Well, you know, how he gets in, goodness only knows.
Ooh.
Another Le Mans winner, of course, in June.
Absolutely.
So again, he can't do it in the same class either, can he? Because he won in the GT class in June and he's not in the GT class in September. So he could end up with a Le Mans win, but it wouldn't be in the same category of car.
Joining an exclusive group here. There's just a few of them. Arnaud Collard again has done that. Romain Dumas did it in GT Pro and LMP1 twice, and for different factories as well.
David Brabham?
He's not here, though.
He's not here.
It's true.
Yannick Dalmas didn't do it. He did it overall or not at all.
Jan Magnussen, who holds the unique qualification of this group as having won for 2 classes, neither of which exist anymore. Not by saying anything about his heritage or whatever, but great to see Jan back here in the JMW Ferrari. This is the Golf Racing 86 car, full season WEC car, of course, and the gorgeous Wins liveried Team Project 1.
Do you know, there are certain colours on that 911 that shrink it and make it look narrower, but a solid colour, you see what a wide car that is. Yep. It looks so good in a solid nose colour.
On board now with the 36 Signatech Alpine car, and this has provided, I think it's fair to say, gentlemen, endurance racing world with one of its very best.
So we go on the same plan, okay? 4 laps, new tire, and after 5 laps, new tire. Okay, do you want to reduce the TT now? Because I had the feeling that it was holding a bit the car.
Just talking on the new tyre run there, that they're going to do 2 runs of new tyres, so a 4-lap run, which is 2 timed laps, 1 out lap, 2 timed and then 1 in, and then 3 timed laps would be the next one. TC traction control, just holding back on the new tyre. You can basically reduce it right down, and it just lets the car, it lets it run. It's think of it a little bit like, you know, if you've got the reins held tight on a horse, or just let it run, and that's exactly what you want to do. You want it to catch the snaps, but you don't want it to hold everything for you. Certainly not on that new tyre run. Once you get into a race run, then that's a slightly different story.
Yeah, and late into the session for the 36 car, I was about to say, one of the best pieces of news we've had since the lockdown months, which is that Signatech Alpine will step up to the top class of sports car racing next season with a Rebellion chassis. So with Rebellion Racing leaving, at least one of those cars will stay active in grandfather form against the hypercars that are to come next season. Loads more to come. Lots of good news, as Martin was saying earlier in the show, tomorrow.
Yellow flags out at Marshall's Post 25.
Why. 31
and
car.
Yeah, that hasn't gone in slowly, has it?
No, that's not good.
That's a left-hander at Indianapolis, so you come through a very, very quick right-hander and then try and brake. And the Panis Racing car's gone in quite heavily there, so that's a little bit more than just dragging it out by the looks of things.
Going to name the guilty party if we can spot who's. They're not on page 1 of the timing screen. Is that an outlap?
I'm just checking now. Unfortunately, our second timing screen's gone down.
Ah.
Don't think that's due to the accident.
Yes, yeah,
that
just
would
cut
be
the
unlucky,
cable.
wouldn't it? Yes.
So just a quick view in the pit lane there of the second.
31, it was Julian Canal that's at the wheel.
Okay.
It was an outlap, you're right there. That he's gone off. So I presume he's just snatched the brake or lost the rear a little bit on the right-hander and then tried to sort of get it under control, but not quite achieved it.
So there's a few cars haven't been out. We just saw...
You've got to remember there's a 3-hour session this morning.
Yeah.
And then there was a 1-hour break. And so if you effectively took the checkered flag very late, you could be 10 minutes before you came back to the pits, which would mean there was only a 50-minute turnaround. And if you're doing any changes, then you would you very possibly miss the session, the start of it.
To this point, 40 of our 59 cars have been out in this session, Martin.
Yeah, neither Dragon Speed car. We just saw one Dragon Speed car out, number 21 car. That's the... I don't think the other one's been out at all. Did I just see a Jaboué in the garage?
Jean-Pierre.
Why? See, the problem with the masks, obviously, is that you can't see the face, but the hair, I don't know who it was, but the hair was Jean-Pierre Jaboué all over the place. Well, the hair was all over the place, but it was full-on Jean-Pierre Jaboué in, yeah. I'm not sure who exactly.
That's Olivier Panis.
Yes, it is.
Who was the last French driver to win a Formula One race until just a couple of weeks ago when Pierre Gasly took that honour. And the difference between the two was 24 years.
What a fantastic moment.
Which is Pierre Gasly's age. Gasly was weeks old when Olivier Panis won the Monaco Grand Prix. So the last Frenchman to win the Monaco Grand Prix, the last man to win a Grand Prix for Ligier, and as you said, up until Pierre Gasly's win in Monza, the last Frenchman. 24 years. I mean, goodness me. You think of all the talent that France produced in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and since, and yet, it's nearly a quarter of a century since the Frenchman's won a Grand Prix.
In Formula One. But that French talent just didn't disappear. France has always had a lot of very strong talent. They just went into, if you think, World Rally Championships, where they won 15, 16 of them between a couple of their drivers, into sports car racing, and there's been a plethora, there's a few of them.
Touring cars.
So, you know, they've been around the globe, just not necessarily in Formula One. Certainly not with the numbers that were there until Romain Grosjean was one that actually started the catalyst for the next generation to follow through.
Yeah. And again, as you say, it's not that there haven't been French drivers racing in Formula One, they just haven't been in one of the 2 or 3 teams that you need to be in. And of course, one of the great, or several of the big supporters of French talent were big supporters of Formula One. So you had teams like Guy Ligier's team who would naturally lend towards putting young French drivers into team. You had support from people like Elf, particularly, and from Gaulois and so on. So there was a lot of national company support for French drivers, and all of those, like Olivier Panis, who came up through the system, like Alain Prost, definitely benefited from that. Well, here is our Richard Mille Racing Team LMP2 car, one of 2 all-female lineups in the field. The other one is the Iron Lynx Ferrari that Rahel Freya is currently driving. And this car with a 3 female driver lineup. It was always planned to do European Le Mans Series and Le Mans, but unfortunately for Catherine Legge, who was due to be the 3rd driver, she had a pre-race crash in Le Castellet in testing, and she is not fit enough, unfortunately, to drive at Le Mans. So there's been a driver lineup change in that car, Graham.
Yeah, there's been a couple of driver lineup changes in it, and but what we've got are 3 talented young ladies. Tatiana Calderon in the car at the moment. Sophia Flörsch, the youngest driver in this race, I believe, 19 years old. We've got 2 19-year-olds, but by 3 months or so, Sophia, the youngest.
Now, reading your notes, either you've changed them overnight, or you're saying Charles Milesi. Charles Milesi is 19 and Sophia is 3 months older.
That's right, the other way around. My apologies. But and Betska Visser, who 2nd in W Series in its debut season as well.
Yep.
And they will take time to bed themselves into this. The pace will come, the consistency will come. They've been unlucky because of the changes in calendar and other commitments. They've not had a stable driver lineup to this point. But boy, oh boy, they get plenty of track time now.
Well, there are 2 things in their favour. First of all 3 of them can drive, and there's no question about that. And they come from single-seaters, and so adapting to the P2 car is maybe less of a drama than if you were finding people from touring cars. But also, they're being run by an extremely competent team who know the car inside out, know Le Mans inside out, and so they've got that back up. And so all they've got to do is get their mindset around the length of the stint they're going to do, which is half a season worth of single-seater racing per stint, pretty much, and just try and understand that even a finish is going to be a massive achievement in a race this tough.
Absolutely. Signatech are looking after that effort. They are, of course, the 2-time winners, well, 3-time winners here, but twice on the trot. There's another team coming in for a hat-trick, not with quite the same driver lineup, but it would be 3 wins on the bounce. De Vries comes in.
And Philippe Signot's team, they need no introduction in LMP2 and sports car racing, and they are absolutely a benchmark team. So you couldn't wish to place a project in better hands, and Richard Mille has done exactly that with his concept.
And what a comeback while we're talking about the Signotec team, as we just seen Nick de Vries taking helmet off.
I'm still not seeing how de Vries rhymes with quick. I'm going to have to work on it. Maybe it's my pronunciation.
Bemused look from McNish in the corner.
She's giving me the old-fashioned look.
The point there, though, is from a point just a few months ago where the Alpine brand looked like it might disappear, the turnaround under new management at Renault, for that now to be the dominant sporting brand, well, it will, by the time we get to racing next season, gentlemen, be the moniker that's applied to both a Formula 1 team and a team in the top rank of sports car racing. 2 full FIA World Championships with that brand. That's some turnaround.
Absolutely, and and for the team, it's fantastic that has all been sort of heading in their direction over what have been very uncertain times and what might have looked like a very uncertain future to start with.
Yeah.
Looking for a position for the 32 car. Again, that's not on my timing screen.
No, I think that's one of the ones that's joined in.
Page 2. So the 22 United car, though, which is this one, is currently 4th fastest. Racing Team Netherlands quickest in LMP2 from G Drive with Jean-Eric Vergne. We apparently now have to say, because in a Ayrton Senna style, we find out that we've been saying Jean-Eric Vergne wrong in a very English way for many years.
This is the 22 United Autosports car. Powering through Dunlop.
And making a unilateral decision now that the SO24 Haas by Graf is going to be called the Graf car from here on in.
SO24.
Yeah.
SO24. Backed, by the way, by a consortium of regional businesses in the South region. And one of the other cars that features a Le Mans-born driver. There are 3 Le Mans-born drivers here, as the number 11 car is off the track again. And that's just after rejoining, I think, from the whoopsie we had for the car. It's Eric Maurice this time in the car. And that looks to have gone straight on at Dunlop.
Yeah, and that will be straight out of the pits. And up. Yeah, so cold tyres.
Yeah.
Not cold, but not hot enough for the speed he was carrying in. It wasn't a prodigious pace, but enough to loop the car around. Now, of course, he has to watch the marshals because he actually wants to go backwards. Oh, no, that's got a decent turning circle, and off he goes.
A good London cab, that.
Not sure you get much luggage in there, to be honest. I don't think Hackney rules. So, as you say, Eric Maris, experienced enough here at Le Mans not to have needed the rookie test.
So, no, good-looking livery on that car. That's kind of deep blue. I've seen them before on your Internationals LMP3 cars.
I was looking for the position of the 32 United car. That is 16th in a field of 16.
It says just powering up the order now, isn't it? It was Will Owen out in the car. And, yeah, you will notice that despite the onset of Goodyear, the Dunlop Bridge is still the Dunlop Bridge. For no other reason than lots of other things bearing Dunlop tyres still race here. Trucks for one, motorcycles for another. Already had the 24 hours, the EWC, isn't it?
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, they had some pretty. It was actually a classic bike Le Mans, which is normally in the spring and is normally pretty cold, pretty drizzly, and pretty grim. And it was cold, and it was a lot more drizzly than normally, actually. So they had some fairly miserable racing conditions for the 24 Moto.
Another previous winner of this race and in this class, and currently leading the FI World Endurance Championship in GTM. Francois Perrodo it is, aboard the 83 AF Corsa Ferrari. Won this race back, I think, in 2017 in GTM before moving on for a couple of seasons in LMP2. He's found, I think, the GT cars much more to his liking. He's mixing his WC program at the moment with a program at the Nürburgring. We'll be contesting the Nürburgring 24 hours next weekend, and one of a number of drivers and teams here, and including one commentator on our team, will be doing just that. Not Alan, It's all right, you don't have to worry. It's not you.
Same country. It's not he that has to worry. It's Kelly that can now. It's Kelly that can now stand down.
I'm going to Nürburgring in 24 hours. I was just wondering whether there was something I didn't know. Why I was going.
Yeah, take your suit.
I have to take my tie as well.
Take your racing testicles, because your suit and helmet are already there. They've been sent in advance.
Trust me, I think I would need a slightly larger one than any of my older ones.
Quickest lap of the session, and it's a 3:21.079. It goes to Kamui Kobayashi, and who holds the lap record here now, of course, thanks to the astonishing qualified performance just a few years ago. Delatraz going quickly at the moment as well. He's just put in the fastest first sector of this session.
Yeah, but also look at Rebellion Racing as well. Oh, sorry. That's who you're talking about. I apologise there. I was looking at the actual times of splits. Quickest in the first sector, and his quickest personal in the second sector as well. Third sector, though, is the one where you can easily get so caught up in traffic, because it's all the way through Indianapolis and then down towards Porsche corners as well. And if you get caught in the middle of Porsche, then you can lose easily 1-2 seconds.
Do we think Floyd is a sponsor's name on the Bicoles, or please tell me it's just the nickname they've given to the car? And
no, it's not. It's a sponsor. It's Floyd.1. I think is what.
Drat.
Yes.
Well, this is some serious work going on at Rebellion. That will be a new engine being fitted, won't it? So we ain't going to see that in this session.
Engine or gearbox?
Yeah, well, that's quite a long way forward for a gearbox.
Yeah, but remember they said they had the problems with the clutch pulling out at the beginning of the session. So Gustavo Menezes, when he was on lock, he said there was something with the clutch that he was kept stalling, and so therefore I would suspect it's probably taking it apart to be able to get into that part of the car.
But they're unbolting something from the bulkhead. Well, what's bolted to the bulkhead? It's the engine. It's not the transmission. Transmission is bolted to the back of the engine.
Yes, usually.
I would have said if the gearbox is that high up and that far forward, then they've got some very unique design concepts going on, and it's the other car as well. So this is...
Well, some good news, by the way, for Rebellion is that Louis Delatraz has actually completed that lap, and it's a significant improvement in time, a 3:23.458 for Delatraz.
Yeah, but it's not very quick in the last sector. It was that last sector, he had some traffic.
Run across the gravel, the exit at the Ford chicane for 39. So 24 Graf car. We'll decide which of those two monikers will apply to it.
Graf Racing, that's the team, and yeah.
James Allen kicking up the dust.
No, not that one. Different one. He's Australian, this one. And in a Panis Racing team, a little bit of crack bodywork. Did we know that car had gone off?
That was one that you were craning out of the barrier.
Ah, yes.
It's at Indianapolis earlier on.
Completely different sort of craner curves.
Dear. It's going to be a long weekend. I do apologise, everybody. I know I started this, but...
Thank you. And it is an engine. I tell you what, you should be...
He's good at this.
Yeah.
You know?
Listen,
but you do realise the clutch is attached to it.
Yes.
Yeah, but not at that end.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if they're changing.
Well, if they were having problems with the clutch, it's quite conceivable because the crank or the flywheel had come loose. But things bolted to bulkheads since 1967 have been more of the revy variety that makes the power rather than the grindy variety that transmits it. So, and in fact, before 1967, although the Ford Cosmos was the first engine that was a fully stressed member, so you could bolt it to the car and then bolt the suspension and the gearbox to it.
Further improvements in LMP2. This is one coming from John Eric, still going to call him Vern. 3:30.26.
Yeah,
it means he's second quickest now, and that's the 26G drive. No one close yet to the 3:27.1 we saw from the Racing Team Netherlands car at the start of the session.
If we go Vern, we're just going to sound too poncy, aren't we?
Really.
And
I should mention, by the way, that currently 8 positions shy of where he'd need to be at 2:30 on Sunday to get the Triple Crown on Pablo Montoya. Late addition, of course, to the Dragon Speed team, the number 21 car, Dragon Speed USA. And what do I mean by that? Well, we've heard a lot over the last couple of years about Fernando Alonso. The other man that is one race away from a Triple Crown is Juan Pablo Montoya, who has, of course, got Indy 500 wins and a Monaco Grand Prix win on his career CV, and requires just one race, this race, to complete the Triple Crown. And wouldn't that annoy the world's most famous Spaniard?
But again, even to get close to what Graham Hill did, Montoya's going to have to return to Formula One and win an F1 World Championship as well.
No, it's Monaco Grand Prix.
I know, well, I know, but when Graham Hill did that, he was also a multiple Formula One World Champion.
And
plus five Monaco Grand Prix. Yes, and he's got to grow a pencil tash as well. I think that's absolutely mandatory. But, which is another reason for wanting to see Alonso do it, just so he has to wear a little tash like that, because that would be genius with those caps and a pencil tash.
Simply because we haven't, or at least if we have, I've missed it, and I apologise if I have. We've not mentioned it. Top of the tree in GT Pro for the second session is Aston Martin, 95 car. Marcus Sorensen is currently at the wheel of that car, but top 2 in the first session. Topping this session, just been split, by the way, by the 71 AF Corsa, but Aston Martin going very quickly in the early sessions of this weekend.
We've just gone double Dutch. We went from a picture of a man in a helmet with a Mentos suit, which is the new Porsche Super Cup Mobil 1 champion,
Larry Tenford.
Larry Tenford, to the Racing Team Netherlands car. And who's at the wheel of that now? That's Fritz van Aert. Fritz is... since they changed from the Delara of their first season to the Orica of this season, has been transformed, because it's a car that doesn't want to bite him every time he gets in it, he says, and he has become one of the quick gentleman drivers in LMP2.
Nakajima very quick here, quickest first sector, quickest second sector. Looking at the cars coming up, he's going to probably get them at the end of the long right-hander as he comes through Porsche. Entry to it is nice and clean and tidy now. He's got them much earlier, and so that's that lap gone, unfortunately. But that was going to be the quickest of the session, and the first person to dip into the 3-minute 20s, possibly into the 19s as well.
Yeah, it's signs that we're going to see something special in qualifying, I think.
Around the TF Sport Aston Martin. Of course, they get 2 bites at it as well, because normally you set these laps in a full field of cars qualifying, but now not only do you get a chance to set a lap record in qualifying, but you've also got a hyperpole where the track will be yours basically, and almost yours alone, because the session is so slow. People won't be going in and out of the pits endlessly, and there won't be very many of them, so we should, there's no reason at all, see a much quicker lap.
And that was a 3:22 flat, which was actually that car's quickest of the race, considering the traffic at the end of it. I think it was well into the low 19s that it would have been able to do.
Well, looking at the sector time for the sister car, that was indeed well, just under 2 seconds, or just under 2 seconds slower in the final sector than the quickest time of the session. So counting that back, absolutely spot on, Al. That's looking like close to kind of 3:19s.
But he was 3/10 up after sector 2, wasn't he? So
he's 1.1 up after sector 2.
Yeah.
It was 3/10 in the first sector, 8 in the second sector. So he was already down at the 20s at that point. That's a spin exit of Dunlop. Kyle Tilley just looping it around. Lucky that no one tagged him, actually, more than anything else.
Two of the three drivers from the IMSA era motorsports effort. Their car, actually, their second chassis being used by EDEC Sport. I'm having to remind myself that is an EDEC Sport car and not an Algar Pro car, because they're using much the same Pantone. But
definitely.
That was lucky not to be collected there.
Renger van der Zande in the number 27 Dragon Speed car. That's the regular Dragon Speed livery of white with the stars and bars across the centre. Now this year in European Le Mans Series they're using the dark blue with the sort of negative of that.
Yep. Dragon Speed hold the position of being the only team ever to win races in LMP2, in the LMS, WC and in IMSA in the same year.
Really?
Yep.
It's impressive stuff. So that car is currently, that's the slower of the two, actually. So that is just, Renger van der Zande just set a lap that is 18th in the class, but the American car with Juan Pablo Montoya currently in it is 6th in the class. So in LMP1, Toyota are 1-2 ahead of Rebellion's number 3 car, which is in position number 3. Racing Team Netherlands, fastest of all in LMP2, ahead of G-Drive's number 26 car and United's number 22. Long-term sparring partners. Here's the G-Drive number 16 car, Ryan Cullinan Jarvis and Nick Tandy, Bedford's fastest overall Le Mans winner.
There's a lot of work going on there. They actually haven't done much this session at all, and it looks like there's been quite a lot of prep work between the two sessions. Now, they only got this car because actually this car was being raced by Dragon Speed earlier on, the physical car, and so Algarve only got it, I think, about a couple of weeks ago. And this is the first time that the team, but also that group of drivers as well, has actually run in it and together. So it'll be a bit of a learning process by everybody, I think, there for a little while.
Henrik Hedman taking that one over. In GTE Pro, the 92 Porsche is fastest of all, from the 51 AF Corsa Ferrari and the 95 Aston Martin. And somebody flick was page 2. Who's got a flicker?
What did you need?
GTE AM, who is the top 3 in the GTE AM class?
Just 1 second.
Oh, well, it's the 98 Aston Martin ahead of the 54 Porsche and the 77, which is the Proton 77 car, which is third fastest. 54 is another of the AF Corsa Ferraris. That's the silvery white one that Giancarlo Fisichella always seems to attract the attention of the stewards in.
That's the VestaJet backed car, Thomas Fleur.
Have they got a chandelier again this weekend in the garage?
Have they?
I don't know. That was on in their first Le Mans as a sponsor. They definitely had a chandelier in the garage.
It was a quite fabulous photo call at the Le Mans Aerodrome last night with one of the larger private jets from VestaJet, one of the Pro cars and the 54 car on the runway. Look, nice.
Very good by Collins coming across the line. 5th overall, the number 4 car. Tom Dillman is currently at the wheel of that car. And he needs to find 0.2 of a second to go quicker than the fastest LMP2 car.
Yep, can tell you, by the way, it's Ross Gunn with the fastest lap in the 98 car, leading GTM. Giancarlo Fisichella, it is. In the AF Corsa 54, second quickest. Matt Campbell in the 77 Dempsey Proton car. And actually, good lap 2 from Andrew Watson in the Gulf Racing 86 car is 4th quickest. And
that 98 car, the only constant with the last 2 Le Mans, and the last several Le Mans actually, is Canadian Paul Dalla He remains in the car, but this year joined by Ross Gunn, who's a British GT champion in Aston Martin, and Augusto Farfus, who last raced at Le Mans for BMW.
So a bit of a warm-up with that, with the last outing in the WEC. And I think looking forward to it.
Is that Carrera Slot Cars logo on the 52 Ferrari? Excellent.
Stefan Gurig, who is one of the 3 gentleman drivers in that car, fairly recently acquired the Carrera Slot Car brand, which joins Revel in his product portfolio now.
All right, so he's got sweeties as well as...
No, not Revels, Revel.
Oh, Revel, okay, yeah.
So if you look carefully, you'll see where the polystyrene cement...
Yeah, the spear marks. Yes. Yeah, it was. It always clouds the screen, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Talk amongst yourselves while we just relive our faded youth. 27 car in the garage. And this Dragon Speed car, Henrik Hedman, Ben Hanley, Renger van der Zande, was 9th fastest in the first free practice session. And is currently, what did I say, it was 16th or something? Yeah, 18th.
Engine change still underway with the number 1. The 27 car, by the way, has only done 5 laps to the point where he came in, so not much in this session from that Dragon Speed car. The 1 car, after that onboard we heard from Gustavo Menezes saying that he was feeling something in the clutch earlier, has had rear end of the car completely rebuilt since then. And Davidson has been out and is now back in the Jota car, another one of our WEC World Champions, of course, 2014 champion, Frank Davidson in Toyota.
That's the camtail version of the Oreca 07, isn't it?
Here comes the Risi Competizione car. Lots of red Ferraris this year.
Quelle surprise.
Yes.
Well, listen, you know, what customer wants to race a blue Ferrari or a green Ferrari? Well, they all want it to be Rosso Corsa.
Here's the thing. We did have a blue Risi Competizione Ferrari last year. It was a kind of art car effort with, I think it was Ferrari Club France last year.
Okay.
And it's fair to say, I believe that Giuseppe didn't like that and wanted it to be red this year and was fairly insistent.
On board with Felipe Albuquerque, the points leader in the European Le Mans Series. United Autosports, and United, I think, fully expect to come here and be contesting LMP2 victory. No longer is this a learning program. They're 2 Le Mans into that, 3 Le Mans into that. They have come loaded for bear, haven't they? They're looking to win this.
They have, and you know, Phil Hansen in particular, the silver driver there, clearly heading for gold status next year, because it looks like he's going to win at least one of those 2 titles if things carry on this way.
Definitely.
And erudite in terms of talking about experience being so much more valuable here than anywhere else because of the variables that this race can throw at you in terms of changing conditions. They not just the full darkness, but as you make your way into darkness and make your way back into full light, and those are things that you've got to adapt to at the point when likelihood is that performance is going to be most important.
Yeah, absolutely. And if last night was anything to go by, that transition will be long. Red flags are out. We don't know why just yet. Sophia Flörsch brings the car down to 80 kilometers now. She will head. You have the choice either of heading into the pit lane or parking up on the grid. But you only do the parking up on the grid thing during a race. So she will have a long...
Oh, it's a big one. It's
that's
the EDEC car, the 28 car.
Well, things haven't gone very well for EDEC Sports since Jamie Campbell Walter came in, and now he's left. It's gone even worse.
It's Paul Lafargue, reigning European Le Mans Series champion, and he's been in the barrier and hard.
With the compressed weekend that we've got, it is quite possible that car might go no further.
Second chicane, so he's crashed somewhere at the second chicane with that one.
That's very, very heavy damage. And if the chassis is cracked, there won't be another one. There's been a lot of broken Orica chassis this year, and while Hugues de Schoenack and the team have been starting up the factory again and trying to build spares for Le Mans, they've also had to create 2 whole new chassis. Well, he's come off the curbs on the exit, and it's just spat him straight across the road.
No, that's not the exit. There's something odd there, because he's came up. That's not even the exit's much more to the right.
He's wrong side of the road, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's wrong side of the road. The only time I've seen anything remotely close to that, we had an incident, I think was it last year, with one of the Rebellions that nutted the barrier, but it was further down. That was getting the power down out of the chicane, and it spat it right. But that's
big black marks over the curbs there.
Nick Manassian there, sporting director at EDEC Sports, looking on with some concern.
That's him in the red suit. And
Paul-Luc Chatin.
Yeah, so are the teammates, exactly. Paul-Luc and Richard Bradley. It's not looking very good.
They're showing some real concern there.
Yeah. Well, their man is out of the car, and that, in the end, is the only thing that matters.
Yeah, on his own 2 feet and standing away from the car, so he's gone out under his own steam.
So you saw Eduardo Freitas. He will be talking to the marshals on the spot. French, one of the number of languages that he works extremely well in. Boys coming out of the garage to see what they can see on the monitors. Well, unfortunately, at the moment, they can really only see themselves. Paul-Luc Chatin there in the background. So whatever happened with Paul Lafargue, that is a very substantial hit for the car, a lot of damage. So cars will be coming back into the pit lane, and that would seem like an excellent opportunity to get the kettle on. Paul de Resta bails out the number 22 car and introduce the other half. Graham Goodwin is even following me as I do. Ben isn't. Ben's nodded off somewhere. Press your button. Let's say good afternoon to Ben Constanduras. Welcome to the team at Le Mans, Ben.
Thank you very much, Martin. Great to be with you guys.
Well, back with us, and with real cars this time, and actually monitors that we can see on, not some tiny little thing hidden down in a hole in front of our desk. No disrespect to whoever came up with the studio set. It looked gorgeous, but this is a little bit more worker-friendly.
And isn't it lovely also, just harking back to that weekend in June, how much has still kind of overlapped into today's racing, seeing Porsche dedicate one of their liveries to the virtual Le Mans win that they had in GT Pro, and also to see that Race Control now use Discord as their means to communicate with all the teams, as they did at Le Mans 24 Virtual, as so many of you, if you listen and play games, you use as a communications device, and now all of a sudden it's being used in the real world.
Yeah, so gamers like Ben are going, yes, we won.
That's so cool, yeah.
We won. But as ever, you learn from every experience, whether you're a driver, an engineer, a race director, or any kind of business professional. You learn from experiences, and you're absolutely right. So Ben is going to be part of the other half of our team, and he is the only softy southerner. And in fact, he's very soft southerner because he's now abandoned England to go and live in La Jolie, France. The other two are Scots, so let's welcome Jamie Campbell-Walter.
Hello, hello.
Who's now in the cool box looking for chocolate, so we'll talk to Peter Dumbreck, who is significantly away from the Tunnock supply.
Yes, hello. Hello, good to be back.
And your first of two 24 hours in 8 days, because you'll be racing at the Nürburgring, and the race obviously starting on Saturday as well. So you've got a busy couple of weeks.
Yeah, you know how it is. It's been a very quiet start to the year. I didn't do any virtual racing at all. Just did bike riding.
Yep.
And a little bit of golf, and now it's a busy end to the year. And yeah, this situation where Le Mans and Nürburgring happened 2-3 years ago, same week after. You know, it was in June. Both races were in June.
Nürburgring was the week before as well, wasn't it? 3 or 4 years ago. So it's been a couple of times they've been in very close proximity.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it's a strange situation, you know, to be in this race, to be at this race in September, and then to be going to do another 24-hour race in a week's time.
In September as well, yeah.
In possibly dire conditions, perhaps.
More September-y than we're experiencing now.
Yeah.
So listen, as a professional racing driver, you basically spend all your time being a fitness athlete, and very occasionally for light relief they let you in a car. That's the way that the weight balances, isn't it? You earn the money for those glorious few minutes where you're doing what you started doing.
That's it, yeah.
And all the legwork, and particularly in your case on a bicycle, all the legwork is to keep you fit enough to do it. Have you ever been fitter?
Well, I'm advancing in years, let's say. So I know I feel pretty strong. Yeah, I think probably when I was younger, I was doing Formula Nippon, which is not so far away from
but you weren't,
Formula One.
But you weren't riding 100 kilometers a day on the bike as well, were you? You didn't have the time.
Yeah, I was doing different training, but I was doing more driving then. Now it's as your career develops, you end up doing fewer and fewer races, and yeah, now I'm not doing that many races, and they're all at the ring. They all tend to be at the ring. So yeah, I just have to be up to speed there, and I need to match my younger teammates, and hopefully I can do that, and
hopefully whip them.
Yeah, and be a strong part of the team.
And with all this time that everybody has had in forced layoff, first of all, you can now remember, and your wife can now remember what you look like, and the kids don't go, who's that strange man, mummy, and all that stuff. How is the handicap coming down?
It's doing well, but what I find is it's like anything. You really have to throw yourself into it to be very good at it. And when you're trying to balance golf and cycling and a bit of motor racing, then something's got to give. So I certainly could be better at golf if I really focused on 4 to 5 times a week, 18 holes each time. Then
you'd be on a Tim Harvey kind of handicap.
Well, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there's someone to play with next time. Yeah, I don't know.
There you go. So Jamie Campbell-Walter, the opposite side of the scale really for you. You have not seen home in about 2 months now, because motor racing an entire year has been crammed into about 3 Wednesdays, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a hectic schedule for everyone. The coronavirus situation obviously compressed our seasons from starting in July and runs through till November, and it's been pretty exhausting, not just for me, but for the drivers, for the teams, for the mechanics, for everyone. Yeah, tough times, but we all still love what we do, and these guys are still going to give the maximum, and coronavirus or not, we're all still here wearing our masks and pushing as hard as we can.
So a red flag in the session at the moment, with what looks to be damage to the barrier down there at the second chicane, as well as the removal of the car. So this will not be a work of a moment to get this car, to get the car onto the low loader. Looks like it's already happening now, but with the barrier slightly bent, we may not carry on the session. The issue being, Jamie, is that we only have, what, 2 hours left of this session, and then we go straight into that 45-minute of qualifying. Qualifying usually is a couple of days after the first practice session.
Yeah, tough one for the teams that, you know, hopefully Paul Lafarge is okay. You know, yeah, if this was Sunday 2 weeks before, no problem. They've got plenty of time to fix the car up. For everyone involved, if you have an accident 1, 2, 3 hours before a qualifying session, it's a really tough one. For that driver to get back in that car and go and give it all. We haven't actually seen what's happened, but for the mechanics, a complete nightmare. Normally, we would have qualifying tonight and then a day off. Also, that's changed this year. So, yeah, really tough one. Whether or not that's quite comprehensive damage, to be honest. So the barrier will get fixed, but whether or not the car will be ready in time is a question mark.
Yeah, IDEX Sport running 2 cars, the second of which it has the kind of the rookie drivers that need to get their laps in. So that's one problem that the French crew don't have to worry about, those minimum 10 laps required by, I think, all 3 of the other crew. And we do have free practice tomorrow as well, tomorrow morning, only a 1 hour session. But I guess that will be the objective. If there is the ability to fix the car, get it ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, or even tonight.
Yeah, till midnight we're running, yeah.
They might miss the qualifying, but they could still get out for FP2, FP3. We run until midnight, I think it is tonight. So they you know, these cars are pretty strong. When you see a crash like that, yes, it looks bad, yes. But as long as the chassis is okay and the main parts, the chassis and the engine, actually the suspension, the whole front nose section, which we saw completely off the car, you know, as long as there's the inserts in the chassis where the bodywork connects to the whole front end, you can sometimes have a shunt that looks enormous, but actually takes relatively little time to put the car back together. So it really, until the team gets the car back off the low loader and has a good old look and rips all the damaged parts off, we won't know. But I'll send Nick Manassi, the sporting director there, a message and ask him how they're getting on in a couple of hours.
Yeah, absolutely. The car will come past our viewing platform here, which is on the exit of the last chicane, and we watch the cars come through that last chicane and over the line, which is quite a nice thing to do at the moment. Although, of course, as the sun goes down into our eyes, it'll make much more tricky viewing. Just a reminder then of this compressed schedule that we have. 5:15 local time is when we will have our qualifying session. All 59 cars will take the track. Only 45 minutes to get a decent lap in. It's going to be absolutely frenetic. And the objective of that session is basically to get into the top 5 of each class, which will then allow you to progress into Hyperpole, which happens on Friday at 11:30. And then you'll have a clear track to do what you like. But for the classes that are well populated, like the GT AM class and the LMP2 class, that will be very, very frenetic. Obviously, LMP1s, all cars will go through. We'll miss a couple of pro cars from the GT category, as there's a couple more than 5, but only a few more than 5 that won't be able to get through. We will then have free practice 3 from 8 o'clock this evening, and that runs all the way through midnight to get those night hours in. And actually, free practice 3, Peter, from what we experienced last night when we were sitting having dinner, it's going to be the majority in the dark, isn't it? It's going to be about 3 hours in the dark.
Well, that's a different situation with this year's race. Obviously, the nights are almost, 12 hours long, darkness. So, yeah, the thing is about driving here in the dark, though, it's not too difficult. You know, we've got pretty good weather at the moment, so the lights will be working very well. The air's cooler, the cars will be fast, and obviously, if you've got a particularly quick driver in the car, which they will do for a qualifying session, then they'll know the track like the back of their hand anyway. So, yeah, we're going to see some fast times tonight.
Porsche did a very interesting research into the conditions in which differ between June and September. And in fact, the mean average temperature between June and September is about the same here at Le Mans. The difference being the opportunity for rain being much, much higher. You can see they are going to try and fix that barrier. So this is going to be a little bit longer period of red flags while we get that barrier fixed.
So we've seen it's going to restart in about 22 minutes from now.
Looks like they've done a pretty good job of that barrier already. There is Eduardo on his phone. Oh, he's messaging you, is he, Martin? Oh, okay, very good. I believe that the reason Lisa's not alongside him this weekend is that she'll be working at the Nürburgring for DTM, because that's one of her other jobs. So that's why she's not with the sidekick, not with Eduardo this weekend. Yeah, so same average temperature across the whole of September here in Le Mans, whether it be June, whether it be September. The opportunity for rain much, much higher. And Harry Tinknell said to me last night, is it going to be wetter than, is it going to be darker because it's longer nights? Will the sun go deep? I don't know really where he was going with it, but I can sort of understand. You know, it doesn't really ever get dark. Right in the middle of the night, there's still a lot of light in June. You know, it depends how many clouds are in the sky. If there's a nice, you know, full moon with not many clouds, and it's going to be fairly light out there. So I don't know what the state, but I mean, certainly the weather right now is good. We do know that there's a possibility of thundery showers come Saturday. So for us sitting in the box here, might be quite exciting. For the guys in the car, tough. Just a quick look at Antonio Felix da Costa. What a year that the Portuguese driver has had, and he will be very excited to get another potential title under his belt here at Le Mans this weekend. The Algarve Pro team, far end of pit lane. Good effort from our RF cameras to get all the way down to pit out. And they are running effectively 3 cars, although really one under that banner. Flicking around all the garages as half-masked men talk to other half-masked men and women in the paddock. Quite difficult going to be to identify people just from their eyes, I think, Peter. That's right. I mean, I'm not the best at identifying people anyway, but yes, I'll leave that to you, Ben. You're a seasoned pro. What a crew this car is, though, Jamie. Anthony Davidson inside this crew, as well as Antonio Felix da Costa. That is one to watch for sure, with Jota running the team. Yeah, Jota, top team. Antonio is top driver, Formula E champion this year, of course, recently in Berlin. Anthony is a top-class driver, proved himself with Toyota in ex-Formula 1. And then Gustavo is a very good silver driver. So good team, good drivers, always going to be in with the shot. The one question mark, of course, with that team is that they are running the Goodyear tyre this year versus the Michelin, which the sort of, let's say, favourites, I would say, United Autosports are running. Question mark, obviously, first time for Goodyear here at Le Mans in many years. Of course, we all sort of know behind the scenes that the link between Goodyear and Dunlop, but it'll be interesting. A lot of data collecting for them today to find out exactly what the best setups to get that tyre working ideally. We have seen, let's say, the Michelin being slightly more dominant in normal conditions, and we've seen in some tracks this year that the Goodyear, maybe in the wet, particularly in the damp, the intermediates, working very well and better than the Michelin. So the expected rain on Saturday night, Sunday morning could play into their hands. Be an interesting battle, like always in LMP2. Absolutely. Plenty of talent in there, plenty of cars. I think we've got 21, 22 cars in LMP2 and a good handful of them with the Goodyear tyres. You say, Peter, it's not just one tyre, obviously. We've got the slick tyre, we've got the wet tyre, and we are expecting mixed conditions. So they might not necessarily have the ultimate grip, the longevity when it comes to dry conditions, but the wet tyre could be magnificent in comparison. Absolutely, and don't forget, at least half of this circuit is a normal public road. And I know from the Nürburgring, when you drive around the Nürburgring Nordschleife, it gets linked to the Grand Prix circuit. The grip between the two is completely different. So I'd imagine it's the same here. You know, if you've got a tyre that's working extremely well on the circuit part of it, the part that's a full-time circuit, and it won't necessarily be working that well on the road circuit. So you know, there's also so many variables, and as you say, with the Goodyear, it's I think been quite good so far, pardon the pun, in the damp conditions. So that will be the situation where we might see the Felix da Costa car start to maybe move up a bit. Well, the barriers have all been fixed. The car has been removed from that barrier, although, yes, they have now adjusted the restart time to just 2 minutes to go now. So the rear end going back on that particular G-Drive car. We've got 2 G-Drive sponsored machines run by 2 different teams, obviously with 2 different crews. And that's one to get your head around when you're watching the cars out on track, because ultimately they look pretty similar. But teams will be wanting to get themselves back out on the track for an hour and 45 minutes left of this session. And that will be it in terms of getting their cars ready for the qualifying session, which only comes up 15 minutes after the end of this free practice. So really little time to get turned around. This is the first day of running, and no time, Peter, to get yourself warmed up. No time to just to get into the rhythm slowly, because yes, okay, we had 3 hours this morning, but these hours, these practice sessions disappear so quickly, and we had a red flag in that one too.
Yeah, you're right. It kind of goes back to the last few weeks and how many of the drivers have been racing and active in different series, and how sharp are they. And if they're confident and sharp and have been doing well, then you know, they can jump into these cars and run quickly straight away. But if you've had a fair bit of time off and this is your one big race of the year, then it will take that bit longer to get up to speed.
If you just joined us, the second of the Rebellion cars, that's the number 3 we're seeing out in pit lane. The other one is having some kind of rear end change. We did see a new engine being prepared to put onto the back of that car, so we haven't seen a time yet in this session, and plenty of cars getting to the end of pit lane, trying to get a little bit of clear track. Would this be a time to start pushing?
Yes.
All the time is a good time to push.
All the time.
5, 4.
I think it's
3,
a case of push but
2,
don't crash.
Yeah,
1.
absolutely. Yeah.
Pit exit is open, session has resumed.
It's a data collecting time, isn't it? It's also a time for the drivers just to get into the track. The track will be normally on a Thursday. The track is relatively clean by now, depending on weather, obviously. But you know, we would have normally had a full test day a couple of weeks ago, plus last night's running, which was always sort of 4 to 6 hours running, and then they would have started now and had another load of running. But actually today is the first day the track's been used in a whole year, so it won't be easy for the drivers, and you know, as we've just seen with that enormous crash for Paul Lafarge. But as the cars go out, yeah, the drivers have got to just, you know, pound the laps in, do the runs, do the stints, so that the engineers can do their job to get their calculations right for the race, and the performance engineers, etc., to get the balance right on the car, so that the drivers have a comfortable car to drive, a quick car, and so many all the stats and the tactical parts of the race, which they're collecting all the time.
40-odd drivers that need to get their compulsory 10 laps in, that have not had the experience here at Le Mans. A couple of drivers that need to do compulsory 5 laps. That is for not being here for a few years. Nod if that's correct, Graham. No, it's not correct. That's fine. Just trying to remind myself of all the nuances of the rules that you've been well explaining so far.
Graham, the encyclopedia, could always put his headphones on.
No, he's off. He's off. It's fine. 4 rookie teams, 43 rookie drivers. And the reason they only have to do 5 laps is?
I think it's 10.
Most have got 10, but there are 3 or 4 drivers that have got only 5 that need to do.
You know something I don't.
Well, it's the likes of Spengler and Tom Blomqvist.
They're FI grading.
Right, okay.
It'll be their FI grading. So there are various rules that apply depending on the achievements you've had in motorsport thus far. So I've got a feeling that a platinum ranked driver doesn't need to do
10
the rookie test either.
No, all drivers have to do the rookie test if they've not competed in the race in the last 3 years.
Okay.
So they all have to go to Paris to do the sim.
Yep.
But it might be that Spengler, obviously DTM champion, you know, a competent driver, let's say he's platinum, but maybe that's why he only has to do 5. Whereas if you're a bronze or a silver, never been before, you've got to do 10.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. It's our 3 platinum drivers, Kenta Matashita, Tom Blomqvist and Bruno Spengler, who've only got the 5 to do. And then there's 40 others that have 10 to do. So that makes perfect sense. On board with Kobayashi. At the moment, that car is the fastest by a second.
should add before I hand it back over, by the way, is that it includes anybody that's won the race before but hasn't been back for 3 years, as Guy Smith had to do some years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, Kobayashi, we're watching him. Not a race winner here, unfortunately. Very sadly, a few years ago, broke down. However, his two teammates, have both won. Buemi and Nakajima, twice a winner at this event, and he's coming through the Ford chicane to start his lap.
I think for the moment, clear track ahead of him. Haven't seen too many cars come past the window before him, so at least the first sector of the lap should be pretty good in terms of clearness of the track. And ultimately, the Toyotas don't have a huge amount of competition unless things go wrong for them.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed them queuing at the end of the pit lane, and I think that is an attempt to have a bit of clear traffic. But of course, you always get the dribs and drabs coming out the pit lane 3 minutes later that you come across. But he seems to have got through the first sector nice and cleanly. And on the Mulsanne, hopefully, you always pray that you can meet your traffic on the straights and just blast past them and have nothing in the corners, because you could overtake 7 cars at Le Mans and have a clear lap because you get them on all the straights. But when you get them in the Porsche curves, it's a nightmare. But here we are on board with him.
Peter took us through it, up to 340 odd kilometres an hour with a little bit of a slipstream, flat out in 6th gear.
So yeah, no, he obviously has to find his braking point, which he'll know exactly where it is. Nice wide exit there, slightly touch that curb, run off the road on the left-hand side, leaving the chicane, and similar to the next one. You're just using every inch of road that you can.
Yeah, I don't think quite, obviously being the first day of running for the cars, it's also the first day of running for us as a technical crew putting up our cameras. We don't have cameras all the way around the circuit today because of the fact that that was a public road yesterday. And you can see the autumnal leaves on the right-hand side, very different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an unusual sight. You know, it's what, 30 degrees here, yet there's these leaves blown around everywhere, coming off the trees already.
So yeah, the RF links down the far end of the circuit, not quite in, well, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. We'll find out as we ride on board now with who's in this particular car. It looked like it was going to be Antonio Felix da Costa.
Roberto Gonzalez.
Yeah, Roberto in there. So yeah, we're losing the cars as they leave the first chicane, and we'll pick them back up as they come into the Porsche curves. The circuit itself, though, looks very, very clean, considering there was cars on it yesterday. The surface looks really well prepared.
Yeah, I think in general it does, as you say. You know, there's not been any rain for a while, so that's the thing. If it did rain now, it'd be super slippy. But yeah, I think it's been, they obviously will have cleaned it as well. So the only unknown is the road part of the circuit. But yeah, we've had the other classes out already, the Road to Le Mans, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's been a good mixture of cars. It's the ideal conditions, so we're going to have some quick running.
And more, the intense schedule means that we don't have the opportunity really to reopen the road to traffic. In some years, depending on how the schedule is placed, the road reopens and allows public cars and trucks to go along it, basically dirtying it again for the next day, whereas we're running till midnight. Presumably the road won't open through overnight at all, so it's now clean all the way through.
That's it, yeah.
It remains closed, yeah, I think so. No, it opens at night. Okay, so they do open it up. So we're still going to get the odd lorry with diesel and smoke and so on, dropping oil on the track.
There's shaking heads and there's nothing.
No, we've got to be with 6 people and
6 people and 6 different opinions.
Well, we're not sure then.
The trucks aren't allowed to run after 8 o'clock. They're the union rules.
Yes.
So at least we won't have trucks leaking oil down the Mulsanne. That's good enough.
There was talk from that Porsche report that you were talking about earlier that this could be the fastest race ever because the extra night time, instead of your standard sort of 9 hours of darkness, we're going to have 12 or 13 hours of darkness. Obviously, cars, particularly with turbocharged cars or any engine, is going to run faster during the night. So could be, if the rain doesn't come, could be one of the fastest Le Mans ever because of the race being in September.
One of the other things that was kind of pointed out, which I think we've all felt last night, was the transition between night and day is shorter at this time of year, but the colour and the orangeness and the slightly lower sun will have a big impact on those cars going down the Mulsanne.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. You know, you've got to prep the correct visor. Okay, all cars have got a closed car nowadays, but you have to think about what visor you're going to put on and what stage. You know, it might be that you're in for a double, triple stint, and it's very different in an hour and a half's time. So you have to think where you need your visor, what colour you need your visor, and you know, height accordingly. And it can be very difficult, and especially if your stint begins when the sun is already very low and you're straight into it. So yeah, it's one of those things as a driver. That's what you get paid the big money for, right?
The one thing that I really love about their different stats, the last one, no pollen. Because isn't it the thing when you come to Le Mans, if you have hay fever, you just dread the fact you're just going to be slightly tired and streaming throughout the whole week. I certainly do. I remember Karun was a big advocate for that.
Yes, he was always loaded up on Advil or whatever. No, what's Pyrotin.
Pyrotin, yeah. The pollen was never a problem for me, but I'm going to miss the smell. Well, the drivers are going to miss, sorry, the smell of coming through the Porsche curves with the barbecues, which of course we've got no spectators. So many things are different. But yeah, and going back to that, as we watched the Porsche come through the first corner into the Dunlop chicane, the interesting fact about that Porsche report was that not only the engine's going faster because there's longer night hours, but also the fact that they're going to run maybe up to 4 or 5 stints longer on the softer night tyre. Okay. So obviously the softer night tyre is quicker, you've got more grip, because they run a softer tyre in the night time, the track temp's cooler. This could have a huge, make a huge difference, because some cars actually run well in the night, and you find the swing goes towards that, and then as the sun comes up, obviously the sun coming up, because it's September, will take longer for the track to warm up, and so they might be able to run the softer tyre until quite late on, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. This could have a huge bearing on the race.
Yeah. A rule that I think I knew or know is that you can't do more than a double stint in GT on the soft tyre. You're not allowed to. Rules by Michelin, I think. Can anyone else shake their head about that, or no? That is a rule, and I heard it from actually my teammate. He told me about it. So my teammate next week is here racing in one of the cars, Matteo Caroli. So yeah, you know, obviously independently, but I'll be supporting him because he's a quick wee Porsche factory driver, and I'll spend a lot of time with him again next week.
Jimmy Bruni giving us a wave on the camera there, just getting ready to get in the car.
Yeah, confirmation that is the case. Only two stints allowed on each tyre, so can't go more than 2, but 2 will be nice and comfortable. This is all out the window, of course, because my weather app says it's definitely going to rain overnight at some point. So we're never going to. I don't think we're going to get a fully dry race. If we do, I'll eat my hat, and we'll be very, very lucky, because it does look like the weather is being pushed a little bit further north than first thought, and so we might see the edge of it rather than the very heart of the storm, which I was kind of looking forward to having lightning and thunderstorms. I think we've had it before here at Le Mans during the race. It does provide pretty pictures, if nothing else.
It does. It makes the race wide open, and as I said, from the driver's point of view, it's the last thing you want. You just want a nice, dry, clear race, unless you're in trouble, and then you want it to rain like crazy and swap things around and bring you back into the race.
Young Tommy Branning going out in the 88 car, the Dempsey Proton car, currently pretty much dead last in GT Am. But Tommy is a young driver, a Porsche Junior, I believe, and I actually met him, and I've known him for quite a long time, because one of my drivers I look after, Ferdinand, is also Austrian, and they were karting teammates, and I've got to say, I think the kid is the real deal. And I really have seen him do a few events recently, and I've got my eye on him, and I think he's quite a special talent, and for some reason in this Porsche he's something quite special, so it'd be interesting to see how he makes that car jump up the field with a spin there for Which car's that?
That's the 38 car.
38. I think it was Gustavo in that car, wasn't
it? Ricardo Rodriguez in that car, just losing the rear end.
Roberto
Gonzalez. Yeah.
Ricardo's the brother.
Yeah. So yeah, Roberto is the silver driver. In LMP2 you have to have a silver driver, and then you can have your 2 pros. All drivers will have a equal amount of running, and Gonzalez is very experienced driver, does a very good job, but just looping it round there on the exit of Tête Rouge.
I think he might have just dropped the wheel on the entry, and that's just unsettled it. But he got away with it, and he'll learn from it. That's the important thing. When you don't hit the wall, you learn from your mistake, and you don't do it again.
Makoviecki in the 91 Porsche, just gone P1 in the GT Pro class with a 353.63. Fred is ex-teammate of yours, no, Peter?
Yes, he was in 2013. We were in Aston Martin together.
Yeah.
Not in the same car, different car. But yes, he a very fast driver. Moved on to Porsche after Aston. Been there for a few years now. In fact, going back, we've both raced against him back in 2011 in GT1 World Championship. So it's a funny old world. How it changes around. Obviously a bit younger than us, but supremely quick. And I remember having good battles with him in the Chinese race. So that was that one that we did in Outer Mongolia.
Yes.
We raced.
GT1 World Championship,
Yeah.
Both Porsches, 91 and 92, looking very good actually. Makoviecki P1, Van Thor, Lawrence Van Thor. Then we've got Alex Lynn in the 97 Aston Martin, followed by the first Ferrari, Daniel Serra, who's a race winner with Aston Martin a couple of years back. Very good Dunlop test pilot, I believe. Very good tyre developer. And I think very good at setting up cars.
Gilles Gounon was one of the drivers we didn't see in the first session in Free Practice 1. He's now getting his laps in the Risi Competition Ferrari and being able to pace himself with that Porsche as well. That's nice to have a car, something coming either off the car or off the curb there. Through Tête Rouge, but nice to be able to pace yourself with the car in front to know kind of where you're stronger and less strong, Peter.
Yeah, definitely. It's obviously it's nice running on your own as well, but it's good to be able to look and see where the other cars have the advantages. You can report it. You probably carry your cameras, so your team can also see where the advantages for each car are, and it backs up your story when you have to report back to your team and say, okay, we need to improve here and here, and it can help with the development of the car.
And there is the TF Sport. What a team! Have so much success over the years since in 2012 I ran with Tom Ferrier as a driver, and he was my team owner at that time with a team which was not TF Sport, and since then. Getting involved with Aston Martin and being able to take European Le Mans Series victories, WEC victories, British GT champions as well, and supporting this Turkish entry.
And just ahead of him we saw the all-lady lineup, Sophia Flores at the wheel in the Richard Mill Racing Team car. Currently, I'm not sure where, but she's around about 10th. First time for her at Le Mans. I think the whole crew is a rookie crew now, and quite nice to have an all-female lineup with women in motorsport becoming a big thing. The W Series this year we've seen Jamie Chadwick, the past champion, and be interesting to see how the 3 young ladies get on. All quite good drivers in their own rights. Sophia competing in FIA Formula 3 this year, and as we go down the second Mulsanne Straight, I think that might be Daniel Serra in front. There's one other point about Daniel is he's the only GT Pro driver to ever win with 2 different factories, one with Ferrari and one with Aston Martin.
In fact, he was Brazilian stock car champion.
Yes, he was before, yeah.
Yeah,
so he's
a very competitive championship.
He's used to winning, yeah.
It's a mega championship that in Europe we just don't get to see enough of. The South American championships, both in Argentina and in Brazil, are just fantastic, and names throughout the grid that you would have heard of, whether it be ex-Formula 1 drivers or touring car drivers and GTs, but unfortunately there isn't the platform in Europe any longer to be able to kind of enjoy those races, because they are brilliant when you get to see them live.
Yeah, I think any sort of one-make championship like that always brings out a real competitive edge, although I think they're all silhouette cars, so the cars are all the same.
But yeah, supported by different manufacturers.
Yeah.
The engines will be different.
Berthon in the number 3 Rebellion has just improved to a 23.17, now only 2 seconds off the leader. Quite a good improvement by 7/10.
Yeah, Alex Brundle out in the United Autosports favoured machine, now into 5th position. That was an improvement a couple of laps ago. It's the sister car of De Resta at the wheel at the moment, actually in the pits, which is 2nd fastest. But there's a huge gap between the time that was set early doors by Nick de Vries and United Autosports for 1st and 2nd in LMP2, 3 seconds. I don't really know how to explain that at the moment, Jamie.
It's probably one's had new tyres and the other not. Maybe.
Or you just got a clear lap. You know, sometimes you just get lucky and you get a clear lap, and it's very difficult to get an absolutely clear lap here.
Impressive that 27, only 6 seconds off the Toyotas at the moment. But yeah, if maybe you had a new tyre run and you had plenty as one of the Jota cars goes off, I think. Is that Gonzalez again? But yeah, one maybe Nick de Vries just got that, you know, lucky clear lap, new set of boots, and hooked it all up, and has done a great job. And you know, Paul de Resta's maybe just keeps hitting traffic, so they just keep focusing on the race run.
As long as you are in the top 5 in our qualifying session at 5:15 local time, then you have another chance to get pole position in the Hyperpole session tomorrow. Brand new for the 2020 edition of Le Mans. And I'll tell you what, that qualifying session this afternoon is going to be incredibly hard for everybody to follow, whether it be a fan, a commentator, or the TV director, to know where the fast laps are coming in just 45 minutes with 59 cars. No thanks. I'll hand that over to Martin and the other team to try and follow. As you can see, we get the cars back into our views through the Porsche curves. That's where the cars come back to our view. And
it just gives you a little impression there of how much time the P2 car can lose behind a Porsche. I mean, sorry about Ferrari. That car's moving quickly. McNeil's very experienced driver around here. Yeah, the P2 car's just tucked up behind, losing 2-3 seconds, and that's where the time loss is, and that can very well be that difference between the 4th and the 6th place car.
Quite often find in P2 or P1, if you catch a GT car in the slower corners, especially like the last Ford chicane, you don't actually lose that much because the GT cars are a bit softer. Downforce is not so important in that slow type of corner, and you might just lose a couple of tenths. Whereas if you catch them in the 5th gear, 150 mile an hour plus corner, like the first right-hander of the Porsche curves, the difference there can be up to 40 miles an hour, or 80 kilometers. So you just see your delta on your dashboard just swinging away, -1, -2, -3, and you can't take a risk. I mean, and until the guys get going, the LMP2 and 1 cars start using the outside of certain sections of the Porsche curves, and it starts to rubber up, then you start to lose less time. But that doesn't happen until the race. So, and they're not going to take too much risk in this second session.
Yeah, the frustration tends to build though gradually.
Yes.
As you might have got a pretty clear lap, and you get to the Porsche cars, you're nearly at the end of the lap, and you know you're on a good lap. As the P2 sticks it up the inside there.
Not a lot of awareness from the Ferrari, which was kind of in the middle of the road there, and not really giving the P2 car any idea of what he was doing.
No. Difficult, that one, because you've got a sort of right-hand kink, which is flat, but in a GT car it's quite difficult to keep the car on the right-hand side.
Well, the P2 car was probably a mile back.
Yes.
Going into that,
exactly.
and then suddenly it's there, and yeah, I think the GT the driver of the GT car just didn't even know he was there.
Thomas Fleur was in the 54 car, which he shares with Giancarlo Fisichella. That car's second in class right now, after Giancarlo was out early doors. Interesting to see we've got a notice on our timing screens for track abuse, or track limits abuse for the 89 machine. We actually had a reprimand in the first session for a particular car, which, because the internet's not working in our booth at the moment, it doesn't play. It was 66 JMW, okay. And in fact, we had 3 decisions in free practice one of which was for contact. There was some contact that obviously we didn't see between 24 and 30, and there was a reprimand given for that as well.
Sophia Flores just crossed the line with a 3:35.2, 2 green sectors, so that's a little improvement for that car. I wonder how that IDEC car is. Ah,
there he is.
There he is.
Well, it looks good from that angle, doesn't it? But it was the front right that took the majority of the impact. And as they swing that into the garage, we might get a better look to see exactly how much damage it is. No, it's all nicely covered up.
Yeah, but I think you'll find that, you know, it's fairly slow corner, second, third gear for them where he's crashed, the chicane on the Mulsanne. And as long as that chassis is okay, they're going to put a new corner on it, stick a new nose on it, and off they go. I'm not quite sure if the rear end has got any damage on the right-hand side, but the front end generally is quite an easy repair. And they can, you know, we'll see in the race, these guys, the guys that have unfortunate accidents, the rear looks okay there. I can see it.
Oh, no.
A big crash for the 17 car.
And that is Dwight Merriman in the IDEC Sport, another IDEC Sport.
Car. So that's in the Porsche cars, isn't it?
And that's a big shunt.
That's on the left-hand side of karting, right?
Yeah, it's the exit of karting.
Oh, yeah, you can see the airport behind.
Yeah, and he's come out on the exit. You can see these yellow rumble strips on the outside here. He's obviously looped it around the cars. He's not got enough opposite lock on, and he's hit the left-hand side wall. Quite a common accident here. Last Porsche Curves karting corner is off camber on the exit from apex to exit is off camber, and a very difficult corner, one of the trickiest corners on the track, and very fast. Just a tiny lift in these cars, if maybe in qualifying nearly flat, and you can see him. He's got out of his own accord, but he's clambering over the barrier there. But that will be a big one. Eduardo Freitas stuck the red flag out straight away, and let's hope he's okay. But that is absolutely a nightmare.
The last thing you wanted to do. Yeah.
A nightmare.
And this is the car that needed to get 30 laps in for their 3 drivers that needed 10 laps each. Jonathan Kennard being one of those that we can see. And it doesn't look like he's done many. He was ready earlier on to get into the car, but unfortunately not for the rest of the day, or at least not for the rest of this session, with an hour and 18 remaining. Of course, it's a free practice, so the time will continue to tick away.
I mean, the team normally, you've got your 2 crews, so you're covered. You know, the crew on the 17 car will start repairing. Normally, you might let that other car continue running, and you steal a couple of mechanics, you know, just to help out to repair the first crash.
Yeah.
And now, of course, your second car comes back with a corner gone and huge damage, and really. That's a tough one for the team, really tough.
And let's face it, you actually never have enough time. Doesn't matter how much time you've got, unless it's a full-on day you've got. You always can make the car better, always repair it. That take more time to repair it. So what he's done is he's hasn't straightened the wheel on the exit. He's tried to keep legal, because obviously if you run the car out there, you're abusing the track limits. And yeah, instead of straightening the wheel, he's had a bit of lock on, swapped ends, and ended up on the inside in the wall.
And that can be a multitude of different things. That could be him reacting to another car, trying to keep away from a faster car, perhaps. Maybe contact, or maybe simply just holding the lock on too long.
As Jamie said, you can't really see it from this angle, but that whole corner is off camber. And so it's so slippery through there, it does the car either wants to understeer wide off the track, or it wants to swap ends with you, depending on your setup. So, and you know, we're fairly early in the running for the weekend, let's say. So yeah, maybe the track's not fully up to grip.
And of course, as we just mentioned, those all 3 drivers are rookies too here. They would have had to do their sim sessions, but they will be getting their first laps for real around the track. And so, you know, those kind of things happen when you are a newbie to Le Mans.
Yeah, it's such a tricky, like we said, first day of running. He's not up to speed, and they tried to push too soon, you know. Such a shame. And IDEC, Dwight, who's crashed the car, they were in Daytona. Nick Manassian did Daytona 24 hours with the ERA team, I think it was, and he met these guys and they said, you know, we want to do Le Mans, and here they are with the IDEC team. So first time for IDEC, I think, running 2 cars at Le Mans, which was a huge undertaking, having spoken to Nick a few times, to put it all together in a relatively short space of time. Dwight and co owned the car, so it wasn't IDEC's car, but being run under the IDEC banner, and yeah, such a shame to lose. It's the most critical time. You know, we've got an hour and 15 minutes left. In an hour and 15 minutes, you're going to be doing 15 laps or so, and those extra 15 laps, every one is so important, and the next driver getting in has now lost that. And yeah, tricky one. It's you want to push, but you just cannot afford to have that shunt on the practice sessions, you know, because it's so costly. But it happens to the best of us. I'm sure we've all done it, and they'll fix the car and they'll be in the race and they'll be okay.
Well, they did a total of 22 laps in FP1 and have done a total of just 7 laps so far in this session. So potentially they were not far away from getting their allocation in, depending on how and which driver was in the car at which point. They still probably would have to do some night running though, and the only opportunity to do night running would be this evening. So really kind of critical to make sure you get those cars out for the practice session tonight, because without night running, then you may not be able to qualify.
Yeah, I think for the rookie drivers, just Le Mans it's not that bad, because Le Mans is actually lit up and the corners are all, there's good lighting. You know, when you do Spa 24, Nürburgring 24, N24, things like that, it's really dark. Here, it's not so bad. It's a bit like Daytona. The straights are dark, but it's not horrendous. So luckily these days, nowadays, with all clever technology, the lights are all, you're guaranteed your lights are good. Whereas, you know, 10 years ago you had to up a bit on the left mirror light. So it'll be okay, and as long as they take it nice and easy with their first night laps, come race day, they'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, but on the other side, the rules are there for a reason, and if you can put the car on the wall right now in the middle of the broad daylight in perfect conditions,
yes,
then yeah, you really need to get some night running to be sure that you can, unless that driver is not gonna, he's gonna sit out the night time completely. But you know, that puts a lot of strain on the 2 other drivers, and we see from the car that's just gone in the wall, the Kennard car, they're all rookies here, so they definitely need some running in the night.
So we will go back to green flag conditions in 8.5 minutes time. That will give us just over an hour's worth of running of this free practice 2 session before a very short break. And then we go into the qualifying session, the full qualifying session of 59 cars. So making sure everything is good for the end of the session, as we still actually got cars making their way slowly around the circuit. The Toyota there being followed by the safety car, not allowed to run at any faster than 80 kilometers an hour to get back to the pits, and therefore maybe had just come out the pits when the red flag flew, and that's why it's taking such a long time to get round. But a little bit of barrier repair, not Armco barrier, but the wrapping around the tyres needs to be fixed on the inside there at karting. And
well, that's a good sign. The fact that we're going to get up and running again fairly soon, it means that the barrier is not too bad, means the damage of the car is not too bad, hopefully.
Yeah. As you can see, it's just literally just peeled away some of the tyre stack from the concrete wall.
The marshal here on the exit of karting, sticking in some new flappies, we call them. They're little flappy rubber things that try to deter you from using track limits.
Given 3 laps.
Most drivers like Peter just, right, I'll take that out.
Yeah. Remove it on lap 1, then you can really push hard in the second lap.
Yeah.
And presumably they don't do a lot of damage to the car either. I mean, looking at the front end of that Toyota, it doesn't even have any kind of aero flips or anything too damaged. It looks like a pretty solid piece of front end.
Well, of course, they take them off for Le Mans.
Yeah.
So the dive planes are removed for aero efficiency. Sebastian Buemi on board here, coming in the pit lane. And even this lap, even though he's probably just gone out the pit lane as that red flag came out, the engineers would have said, right, map 7, do this with the hybrid system, just to see what does this lap, what do we get at 80 kilometers an hour, fuel consumption, how does the hybrid system cope with it, and all of those little things that they can still use a red flag situation to gain some knowledge.
Yeah, unlike often where you wouldn't usually rehearse a full lap on safety car, I suppose.
Yeah.
It looks as though the Toyota might have just done that.
Yeah.
That last lap, 9 minutes and 10 seconds to get around, so 3 times longer than you would expect. I think he was very unlucky with the timing of that red flag.
Yeah. Isn't there a minimum lap time? That's on the last lap, isn't it? Yeah, that's only the last lap of the race.
That's because, was it Jacques Villeneuve stopped at the chicane years back?
Bourdais.
And yeah, just so, yeah, his car was in a lot of trouble. He didn't think he was going to make another lap, and then he crossed the line just to finish the race.
Romain Dumas, part of the Rebellion squad this weekend. Plenty of experience to his name.
Class winner, of course, in GT Pro, and a 2-time overall winner, I think.
Driver change practice going on.
Daniel Berton getting out of that car. And Louis Delatraz, the rookie, is as the 3rd driver in the car, as we mentioned a little earlier on. Virtual Le Mans winner. And GP3 podium scorer? F2
this year, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. What am I talking about, GP3?
F2, yeah.
I haven't been paying enough attention, have I?
Jean-Denis Delatraz's son. Jean-Denis competed here many times, XF1, and Louis done a good job. Formula Renault champion, I think he was, and went up the system.
And driving a lot of different cars. Doing F2, doing this. He's also in the SRO World Challenge, I think, as well.
Yeah, with GPX in a Porsche. So yeah, he's doing the rounds. But it'll be interesting for him to have his first few laps around Le Mans. A great circuit, of course, and he's in a great car to do the first few laps. So all the cars now in the pit lane. Richard Westbrook there with his another one of Peter's old teammates here at Le Mans. Richard recently was with the Ford GT program, which is no longer. Joined Aston Martin, joined the Dane train of Sorensen and Tim, and is a very good welcome addition to that team. Brings a lot of experience.
Of different marks. You know, he's had experience in the Corvette, he's had experience in the Ford.
Yep.
Now he's in the Aston Martin. He can always bring different ideas and philosophies from all the different brands to Aston Martin and help them out.
Yeah, Rich is lovely guy, very quick driver, solid, reliable, fast, and as you say, has got a lot of experience around here and generally in GT cars.
I forgot about Porsche.
He's driven everything.
He was a British Carrera Cup champion.
Yep.
And Super Cup champion.
Yeah,
that's right, yeah.
25 years ago, I might add.
Yeah. Factory driver for Porsche for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, and came over to GT1 World Championship.
Yeah.
So 2010, 2011.
So he's been with Porsche, Nissan, Ford, Corvette, Aston. He's done the rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice little picture there of Buemi chatting to his teammates. Brendan Hartley on the left, talking about the rotation of the car. Hand signals are all universal in racing driver speak, aren't they?
You do it like this, and then I need a bit more this.
can't quite hear. The microphone's not quite picking up the conversation, because of course the car is kind of on a life support machine at the moment, keeping itself alive, and you can hear all that rattling going on, and then Buemi's having to shout over the top of that to be able to communicate with his two teammates.
Deep in discussion. Well, they're looking good at the top of the field. They've got the two fastest sectors, a little bit off, 4/10 off in the first sector to the Rebellion car. But a 3:19.7, a good 1.3 seconds clear of their teammates, and a further 3.4 seconds ahead of the Rebellion car. So looking good. Sebastian, obviously a very experienced driver around here, two-time winner, Formula E champion, a very experienced driver.
I'd say he didn't look that happy. He was being quite French about the whole thing. There was lots of kind of gesticulations going on.
And then that was his engineer sticking his head in the door, getting a bit of a mouthful as well. So he's wanting some improvements made to that car. He's just not quick enough.
He's
Exactly.
I think it's just because he's explaining it with the hand signal. It's not a bad thing. The engineer understands it better. Alan used to do the same.
Aggressive sod, yeah.
Yeah.
See, he just punched me.
1.3 seconds to the good of their teammates right now on the timing screens, into the 19s at the moment in the number 8 machine. 1.36 back is the number 7, and then 3.4 the nearest other car, Nathaniel Bertrand. Plenty of discussions going on between teammates, quite nice to see at the moment. Of course, not the opportunity to get laptops into the cars and kind of properly analyse telemetry and data. It's more kind of bits of scribbles of paper.
Yes, they're just describing how the balance is, you know, and feeding that information back. So we see the IDEC car, the second IDEC car, to be in the wall with substantial damage. Again, you know, if the chassis is okay, and that we can see the crash box there, which has done its job. It's got to compress so much, but not too much. And they're quite strict, the FIA, with the ruling on the crash testing. But again, if there's no chassis damage, that car will be repaired and hopefully back out this evening.
Does look like it's gone quite flush straight into the barrier there. The way that the front end is folded so kind of neatly in comparison to not so much damage on the left and right hand side.
Yes, as we see a picture of the pit straight here at Le Mans. A bit sad for me in a way, because that grandstand on the right hand side is normally full for Thursday night qualifying, but or practice. Something we'll have to get used to.
I think we know what's happened in the Toyota garage now. Brendan's not happy about his teammate. Having a nice discussion, talking about the car setup.
Johnny Molam in a Ferrari, Red River Motorsport, I think it is. With,
yeah, he retired a few years ago, didn't he?
Yes,
yeah,
he's back.
For about a month or 2 weeks, or yeah, something like that.
Yeah. His own team now running Bonamy Grimes, stepping Bonamy up from, well, 4 years ago, never sat in a car before. And actually, a good old mentor of mine, Andrew Marriott, was working with him on the Steve McQueen Le Mans film. And Bonamy was one of the producers, one of the men behind getting it onto screen at the Cannes Film Festival. They were chatting about how Bonamy could race at Le Mans. And in comes Johnny Molam. And 4 years later, here they are at Le Mans for the first time.
Bob's your uncle, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Bonamy Grimes, the founder of Skyscanner. So many interesting stories for the gentleman drivers around the paddock, much of which I don't know much of, but Graham Goodwin in the depth of night will be able to tell you about every single one of them for sure. There's the telemetry now. So Buemi's finally got some scribbles to look at and discuss with Brendan Hartley.
Hey, to be probably, you know, he's a little bit off in Sector 1 to the Rebellion, so they're probably having a look at that, and he's comparing notes and seeing which driver's a bit quicker in the odd corner, and he wants to go out and have another go.
There's the fleet of Aston Martins. You can see how tight the pit lane is. Even if we're not at full capacity grid, there is the possibility of 62 cars here at Le Mans. We've only got 59 cars, although actually we've got 60 garages set up, and the way that the garage is set up means that you can't really give anybody any extra space. So nose to tail, if all the cars had to come in at the same time, you can see just how tight it would be. 2 pro cars on the AM car, and we were hopefully getting going on the hour, but to tell you what, we haven't quite seen the barrier repairs. That will be the thing that's most crucial, and in a moment's time that second IDEC car to be in the barrier will appear, in our view at least, at the Ford chicane.
2 minutes to restart.
And that will give us 1 hour's worth of running. 4 o'clock local time here at Le Mans. And 5:15 will be the start of our qualifying session. And imagine, if you're out on circuit right at the end of this free practice session, it's going to take you 6 odd minutes to get yourself back into pit lane, to fill the car up, to prep the car for qualifying. You've only got yourself 10 minutes before you need to be ready again. It's not really another session. In terms of the timing screen, it's another session, but for these guys, it just rolls straight through, Peter.
Yeah, so everything's so tight this year, as we've talked about already, and it's a new experience for all of them. And you know, the cars that survive and don't get crashed, those teams are that bit better prepared. But obviously IDEC have got a bit of an issue with two damaged cars, and the other situation, I'm not sure, because they're separated by I think it's this car, the 17 car is in a separate box, isn't it? So I'm not sure the mechanics can actually move from one box to the other box because of the COVID rules.
Ah, yeah.
So
no, I think they're in the same box.
No, there's two IDEC cars in the same box, and then there's another car.
Yeah, but I think these two are in the same.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think they're in the same, because when I saw the box yesterday.
Right, okay, that's not an issue then.
So we had a couple of cars at the end of free practice 1 doing 2 slowing down laps, or seeing the checkered flag twice. They got small fines for that, one of which was Romain Dumas in the Rebellion car, the other of which was Maurice Chen in the 72 car. More critically, though, in this particular, in FP1, Timo Bure in the 21 Dragon Speed machine did not slow down quick enough in a slow zone, and therefore will be given a 20-second penalty for his first pit stop in the race. Quite an interesting penalty.
Wow.
Rolling from free practice all the way through to race conditions.
I guess he came in very hot into a yellow flag zone then.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does say it does required time and accelerating too early as well. So he tried to preempt the end of it, and that's another learning thing about Le Mans. These slow zones.
Doesn't really right now isn't getting you any benefit.
Well, not in free practice 1, that's for sure. But you can see just how much the stewards are having to deal with. That's a decision that's only just come out, and they're still looking at free practice 1. So anything that does happen in free practice 2 will be reported to a little bit later. There they are, and Dames, the full female crew, the second of the full female crews. The LMP2 crew, the Richard Mille team, very much supported by the FIA and the Females in Motorsport Drive from Michel Mouton, who kind of heads up that campaign. She'll be out at Rally Turkey this weekend as the safety coordinator for the FIA, but I'm sure one eye will be very much on what's happening here at Le Mans with her team. Sébastien Bourdais for Risi Competizione. Nice to see that Sebastian's got himself a full-time IndyCar drive once again next year, missing him from a single-seater competition in an IndyCar this year.
I was just chatting with Graham offline a second, and yeah, I think that penalty is quite harsh, which you just read out about a 20-second penalty in the race for not slowing down enough in the slow zone. So
in free practice.
In free practice. So just to explain to you all, they've come into a slow zone. You've got the first yellow flag that the drivers come across, and they've got to be going 80 kilometers an hour when they get to that level with that yellow flag. He's obviously gone flying into the slow zone, maybe doing 160 as he's crossed the yellow flag. Don't know quite how they would know what the speed is, but to transfer that penalty from FP2 to the race at the first stop is quite harsh. But Graham was just saying to me that Eduardo doesn't forget what's happened so far this year, and he clearly thinks that he's obviously done quite a few things wrong,
right,
in order to get such a harsh penalty come this race. So interesting, you know, the drivers have, you've got to be good all season, and if you get a bad rep, it can bite you when you don't want it.
And I suppose that's the thing, you do create a rapport with Eduardo, and all these drivers will be known to him. Rapport, I'm not sure whether that's completely the correct word, but...
No, but you do. And I mean, Eduardo was a race director when I was in FIA GT back in 2001, I think. Yeah, I'm old, but so's he. But he's been here now for a long time. He's a great guy. He does a good job, and I think he's pretty impartial. And a spade is a spade, you know. So, but you know, he's not going to forget a driver that is consistently flouting the rules and breaking the laws, and you know, being a naughty boy, let's say. Whereas the one it's a one-off and it's the first time he's done an offence, maybe he would have just got a 1 minute hold in the pit lane during free practice. So yeah, amazing how a different perception of the rules. So slight delay still. We're waiting another 2 minutes, so until we go green, or just over a minute. So that barrier repair obviously taking a little bit longer.
And just going through the cars, which actually we didn't pick up on the fact we haven't seen the 16 G drive car.
1 minute to resume.
We may have mentioned that a long time ago. Race director didn't hear that one. Turn that up. Maybe he didn't speak. Looks like we are going to be going racing in back to green in 50 seconds time. Cars are queuing up. A lot of cars are queuing up at the end of pit lane. It's going to be very congested. So haven't really got to the bottom of that one. G drives number 16 car with no time in this session. That was the right. We did see that car up in its Jackson, didn't we? Ryan Cullen, Ollie Jarvis, and Nick Tandy car. That was up on its Jackson at the start of the session, but you kind of expect it to be running by now. So they are one of only 2 cars not to set a time in this session. The other car being the Rebellion that we have seen have engine
10,
issues
9, 8,
already,
7,
and they've been working
6,
on that for the last couple
5,
of hours.
4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is open. Pit exit is open. Session has
Back
been
to green
resumed.
flag conditions.
You can ask.
And everyone filtering the way out of the pits. They want the clean air. They want to be have the opportunity to run in clean air as they come out onto track for at least 1 or 2 laps. And it does look like everybody... Why is everyone going out, Peter? Why is it so critical now with just an hour left?
Well, to get ready for qualifying, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's all a bit of a rush now. They've had 2 red flags, and as we talked about, that time just kept ticking down. So they're short on time. They're already short on time this year, but they're super short on time now. And they never know what's going to happen. There could be another red flag coming.
And as you can see, filtering out of pit lane. Not sure there'll be many cars left in pit lane once we've got all this queue of cars onto track. Just the 2 IDEX Sport cars that we've seen cause the red flags in this session. They'll be in pit lane. The Rebellion engine change going on for them. Something going on with the G drive by Algarve car. But ultimately, everybody else looks like they're trying to maximize this last hour, get their cars good for qualifying, and then aim for that top 5 in the next hour at 5:15, which is literally in about an hour's time. It's Toyota number 8 ahead of Toyota number 7 in LMPH. Rebellion number 3 faster than the Bicoles right now, and the Team Netherlands 29 LMP2 is the fastest at the moment by about 3 seconds over the United Autosports 22 car. Philip Hansen now aboard that car, sharing that car with Paul de Resta, who set that time a little bit earlier on. The G-Drive 26 car is 3rd fastest at LMP2 right now. Porsche, Aston Martin Porsche in GT Pro.
So in answer to your question earlier, Ben, they've currently, at the moment, lost 70 minutes, according to Alan McNish, through the red flags. He's a new Graham Goodwin.
Well, you've got the strategy computer there. It should be your thing. Alan's going to keep it for the full 24 hours. Going to get bed with it. It's very useful, that computer. It's very, very useful. Right, on board with the number 8 car. Plenty of traffic to contend with. Don't know how far we're going to be able to take him, but it does feel like we're a bit further into the lap than we have been previously with Sebastian Buemi.
Mulsanne.
Yeah, we're at the bottom of the circuit now, which is good news.
The team have probably made a couple of adjustments after all of his hand actions, and he'll now be doing a run, and those changes have made an improvement.
Again, another driver who, Buemi seems to have been around forever, and he's only 31.
Yeah, incredible. Alan looks shocked.
In fact, I'm sure he started before I started. I'm sure I was racing against him in karts.
I think you've got memory problems.
Yeah, that could well be true.
When you're racing karts, do they have plastic bumpers, or are they still the metal one? And your feet with the bumpers?
No, yeah, there's definitely no plastic going on. There wasn't even side pods or anything.
No side pods.
There was, metal bars.
Good old Larkle.
He's going to squeeze by this LMP2 car on the run down, so that's good for him, although it's just an outlap.
Perilous.
He swings into the right-hander, probably in 5th gear, flat through the 2 lefts. You can see the green flag waving there, and then into the long right-hander downhill. Small break for that maybe, and then karting corner, which is where we just saw the accident. Off he goes down to the final Ford chicane.
If this is going to be a push, you can see how many cars are ahead of him. We can see out of our window there are plenty, but flashing in front of the camera, he's going to have a lot of traffic to contend with.
He's just backed off, actually. See, he's let that LMP2 car catch up to give him a gap, and what he's hoping is that he can clear the first sector with no traffic and then catch all of those cars that just went flying by our window on the Mulsanne.
Yeah.
And the team will have a tracker. They'll have the track map with all the GPS positions of each of the cars, so they will be able to kind of plan and forecast exactly where he might catch all of those cars.
Yeah, I think it was probably just him doing that on his own then, but you're right, the team can look at it, and he's clear so far. He's got 1 corner to go, Tête Rouge, or gone away, but hopefully...
And you know, if he does catch cars, if he still can do the fastest sector for the car, he knows what it can do, and he can always piece together a lap later on with the 2nd and 3rd sectors.
Well, this is Antonio Felix da Costa. The first sector for Buemi was not faster than his teammate has been so far, but this is the fastest sector 1 that this car has done so far in the session. Antonio Felix da Costa is 12th in LMP2 right now, 16th overall, and down to the 2nd chicane. Nice and early on the throttle there. Not so many cars. I can see a glinting of a car in front, but the speed differential is not quite so drastic from LMP2 to GTs as it is for the LMP1 cars, right?
P2's quite punchy now. They're not slow. I mean, Alan probably would be able to tell you 3:27 was quicker than the R8, quicker than the R10, quicker, about the same as the R15. R10. So, you know, not far away from an LMP1 from not so long ago. And, you know, when these cars got a big upgrade with aerodynamics and mostly engine power, they're really not slow cars anymore, you know. Doing sort of 2:01 round Spa, which is quicker than an LMP1 car from 7 or 8 years ago. So they're not slow, and I think there is a bigger gap, and it is slightly easier for them to overtake the GTE cars now than it used to be, because you used to see them going side by side down the straight for a good 500 meters, whereas now they do tend to fly by them.
As you can see from the live timing at the bottom of the screen, Will Stevens is also on a push lap here. 11th position, 7th in class for the Jackie Chan DC Racing 37 machine. It's just a little bit further up the road by about 10 seconds than Da Costa. Both run by Jota, both on the Goodyear tyre as well. And it'll be Will Stevens who'll break the beam first. Where does this put him? Over the line and up into 2nd fastest. Still 2nd slower than that time we saw from De Vries at the start of the session. Da Costa comes to the line. And third fastest for him, 1.2 off, so 0.3 of a second slower than Will Stevens, but still a long way off that that Nick de Vries time, a second off that Team Netherlands car, and from what we saw, no traffic, but a different tyre.
Different tyre and maybe different fuel loads. Maybe the Jota car, the Jackie Chan car running slightly more fuel, full tanks. Quite unusual for teams to show their hand too early. And maybe the Racing Team Netherlands car has gone for it.
Toyota did a 23.5 with the Buemi that last time. Pachito Lopez in the 7 car in pit lane right now. And Jackie Ickx in the Rebellion garage by the looks of things, visiting many an old friend. Always welcome in the paddock here at Le Mans. Always a guest. This is the issue with the masks. I think it is Udo Schoenack.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
You can kind of a bit nervous to say things that are wrong, right? You know, especially so early on. It's only day one. Put my neck on the line a bit later on in the weekend.
Works Ferrari and works Porsche, having a little ding-dong battle through the first chicane there. Still side by side.
So Van Tor on board the Porsche.
Yeah, that's 71 Ferrari.
Yeah, that's Molina in that car.
But again, a good indication now whether the Ferrari can stay with the Porsche down the straight. Because remember, once this race gets started, it's always very different than qualifying.
Oh, there's an Aston Martin there too.
Yeah, so you get a good indication of all the different teams, manufacturers, straight line speed, and this information will be going back to the ATO, and you know there's a possibility of always a BOP change as well, which happened to Aston Martin after qualifying a couple of years ago, didn't it? So it's one of those things that the teams have to be careful not to show too much.
Now, when we had a shot earlier on of the Toyota, I think it was of the 8 car, it did not have
dive planes.
Dive planes.
Yeah, so the 7 car has just taken the dive planes off.
Yeah.
And the 8 car was not running them earlier. So that would have been an aero test from the team just to see what the drag does. The front dive planes, a lot of people think they give you more front downforce. Actually, what they can do as well is give you overall downforce because they're directing the air to the rear wing as well.
Okay.
In a cleaner way, clean airflow.
Yeah, so they've taken off the dive plane and just put a flat.
Yeah, it's just a panel. It's just a filler panel, basically, to give the bodywork a nice smooth finish.
And I think we saw the Bicolis car perhaps losing a dive plane with a tiny bit of contact through Tete Rouge a few moments ago as well. Here's the Rebellion.
And you can see both the Rebellion here and the Bicolis. They've both got one dive plane each. And the Toyota going for the top speed because they're slightly hindered with the EOT. Just checking. I was just looking at Graham to check that I got that right. Also a fantastic, as always, in GT Pro. 1 and a bit tenths separating the top 3, 4 tenths for the top 4. As always, never one dominates. You've got Porsche, Ferrari, Aston Martin all up there. And I think the whole field is covered in Pro by less than a second, apart from the Risi and WeatherTech racing cars. But the factory cars, let's say, are, as always, very, very close and will always be a fantastic battle here.
Just over a second between the top 6. Miguel Molina, the slowest of those 6 cars, but presumably running alongside Lawrence Van Thor on this particular lap with an Aston Martin behind, may well see an improvement in that particular lap. Now, Buemi is on a push in the first sector, 0.3 of a second faster than that Toyota has been through sector 1 all race long. We now go on board the Toyota number 8. Clean track ahead so far, but there are a couple of cars that will be probably passed between chicane 1 and 2.
See the pitot tube, we call it. It's the little silver thing poking up. He's going to get past these cars, no problem. Little silver tube poking up in front of the wiper there. That is same as an airplane has. It's an airspeed sensor so that they can They can see the toe effect, they can see the wind direction, if the car's going into the wind or out of the wind, and gives the engineers lots of information. So yes, still a clean lap so far.
I'm looking at the graphic here that Alan's brought up, and he's about to catch a lot of GTM cars. So no, his lap will end up.
Don't ruin our fun, Peter. We were excited.
This is a good bit of kit here, so I can tell you. That,
oh, you're getting excited by your computer now.
This is good. Yeah. So if the teams are watching this, there's a massive gap back in Sector 1 right now.
Yeah, and even without too much traffic, 0.2 of a second down in the second sector of the lap. He will have that information on his dashboard. Will he catch that GT traffic?
Still only 0.2, but if he gets a clean run through Porsche.
So there's two cars we can see in front of him. One of them's a prototype, one's
a GT, one is an LMP2 that goes off and puts a bit of gravel in his visor and windscreen. Should be able to clear that traffic pretty easily. That is the Costa car, I think.
Okay, yeah, these two shouldn't be an issue. There's another couple just ahead.
Now you can see them, but I think he'll catch them. Alex Brundle's just moved up into P4 in LMP2 with a 3:29.6. Is Sebastian Buemi going to get through the Porsche curves without any traffic? Could do.
Yeah, actually looks so good. Wouldn't have you on my pit wall, Peter, that's for sure.
Just wait till the end of the lap.
So far, so clean.
To be fair to me, it's the first time I'm reading this thing, and
he's in the box. He's gone in.
See, I called that. See, he realised he was going to catch them. He just said, no, I'm going to back out this lap.
And now Pachito Lopez takes the 7 machine out onto circuit after that wing change, so they can now compare balance. I think the 8 car has the wings at the moment. Yeah, it does. A little dive play in the black, the red one. So they were fitted for that run, because they were definitely not on that run previously.
Tatiana Calderon in the all-ladies crew is 2 best sectors for the car. Further down the field in the 50 car.
It's a decent amount of fuel going into the Toyota. With just under 40 minutes remaining, we're in the garage of the G drive. Yeah, so is it 28 G drive? No. Oh, that's the IDEC. Okay.
Yeah, that's the IDEC Paul Lafarge car.
Ben Hanley on the right-hand side having a discussion with René van der Zande. Left-hand side jumps into the car. This was the Antonio Fizzacosta running a little bit wide there. That was what was happening just ahead of the Toyota. We saw it just a few moments ago. This is what the Toyota saw. Distracting, but ultimately not really much of a problem.
Yeah, it probably cost him 2 or 3 tenths because his time was slightly down. But yeah, overall that wasn't the end of the world.
That's Tatiana coming through up to the Ford chicane. Tatiana, quite an experienced Alfa Romeo F1 test driver. She's competing this year in Super Formula, though I think there's been difficulties. She crosses the line to the car up. It improves her by a good margin, actually. 3-second improvement, takes it up to a 3:32.9. Best lap for that car, and nearly had an accident with the 37.
And that's Hoping Tung just coming out the pit lane, so probably not really paying attention to his mirrors and thinking of other things at that particular moment in time. 15th spot for Tatiana then in LMP2. The moment the top 5 has 2 United Autosports cars, has 2 Jota Sports, and has the Racing Team Netherlands car. Those would be, if this was qualifying, the cars that were going to Hyperpole tomorrow. But of course this is free practice and it doesn't count for anything. And there is the difficulty of a LMP1 versus GT battle, just trying to predict where the cars are going to go traffic-wise, and as we've been saying before, catch them at this point. This is basically the worst point to catch a GT car if you're an LMP car. Yeah,
now you've got the chance to just drive around the outside with your superior downforce. But yeah, you lose a good 2 to 3 seconds in that section there.
car off out of our window. There he is. The 42 Cool Racing, Alexander Koini, part of the Michelin Cup LMP3 team last year with his teammate. Based out of La Roche-sur-Foron. My father will be very happy that I said that. It's only half an hour from my house. Oh yes, he's the ex-EasyJet pilot. Thank you, Graham. And actually, they have Nicolas Lapierre as their pro driver, and Lapierre part of the team, kind of a shareholder of the team as well now. Scared the 54 Ferrari as well off the track.
That Thomas Fleur, I think.
So lost it under braking there, losing the rear end.
I think I have a feeling the reaction to Thomas Fleur.
That was the other way around.
The Ferrari, possibly, or they tangled. Interesting to find out what's up with the Rebellion. We've got last and second last, the number 5 Rebellion racing car, and the G-Drive racing by Algarve car, Brian Cullen. Perhaps Alan could.
Oh, there was a bit of contact, perhaps.
Oh, yeah. No, there was.
Well, that's a little odd because you wouldn't expect the GT car to be braking later than the LMP car, but it almost has looked as though the GT car went into the back of Cool Racing.
Yeah, so we heard earlier, the Rebellion car is having an engine change, that's why it's in the pit lane. And the G-Drive car, we're not quite sure, are we? So 2 cars that are out of position.
A push lap from Pachito Lopez, faster in the first sector than that car has been before, but he lost a little bit in the middle sector of the lap. Coming now to the Ford chicane, the final couple of corners, no cars ahead of him, can rattle over the curbs as much as he dares. Second fastest Toyota right now comes towards the line, aiming for a 3:19.7, and the last part of the lap also lost time, so 3:21.1, and equals its best time, that car, but goes no faster at the moment. Definitely advantage 8 at the moment, with Brendan Hartley now out on track in that car. We got a 33 off the road, and Mark Patterson in the high-class racing machine off on the left-hand side in, I'd say that's up to Indianapolis, right, yeah. Marshall Point 29. Doesn't look like contact, it just looks as though he's just kind of stopped there.
He was just on the left kink just before the first Porsche.
Okay, so after Arnage.
After Arnage.
Not Marshall Point. Marshall Point 29. A bit like French addresses, I found out the other day, that the number on your French address is the amount in which you're away from the main road. It's not a number on the house like it would be in the UK. And similar to the Marshall posts around here, but that certainly isn't 2.9 Ks into the lap there. 2.9 Ks from the Porsche curves. Yeah, no, it's into the Porsche curves, yeah.
You can just see the little side lights going on and off. So I think he's just had a sort of electrical failure. The team will now be telling him to recycle the car, and that's basically shut. Not just the car, just turn the key a little bit. We have an ignition switch to turn the car off, but then we have an isolation switch, which is completely shut down the car. So they'll be getting him to power cycle the car now, hoping that he's able to fire it back up and be on his way.
And presumably the radio runs on a separate battery to the car itself. So you lose the battery when you fully power cycle?
Yeah, when you turn the master switch off, you are literally, that is to the battery, you're turning the battery off. So you lose everything, but of course you turn it straight back on. Might be 3 seconds off and then back on. So yeah, you lose the radio momentarily. Or practice nose change here for the Rebellion, unless it's got damage, but this is something that teams do tend to practice. The whole front end of the car, 2 clips on the top, 2 bolts into the front of the crash box.
Of course, it could also be different downforce.
Yep.
Yeah, it looked like there might be more of a dive plane on that second one than the first one, but not totally clear to see. Green flag there, you can then get back onto the power.
Teams also like to just try all of their spare noses because you try them because you want to check they fit, you don't get any extra drag, because the gaps between that you have on your bodywork between your door and the next door and the front wing and the bonnet has to all be.
It's like an IKEA wardrobe, isn't it?
Yeah. And they'll just fit it on the car, and they might just do 5 laps with it, just to check that there was nothing wrong with it, nothing worked, the car did the same top speed, the balance felt the same. So they'll just run through, they might have 3 spare noses out the back, and they'll cycle them all through just to double check that everything, so that in the race, does one get lost with an accident or anything on downforce level, it can be done.
So Pachito Lopez was on a good push lap there, fastest his first sector, and then fastest of anyone through sector 2. But of course, with this double wave yellow in the third sector, wasn't able to complete the lap and lost 6.5 seconds going slow through the yellow flag zone. We are going to go to a full course yellow in 20 seconds time to allow the marshals and the safety vehicles to get out on circuit and to tow that car to safety. Not sure there's an easy place to get that car to close by. It is on the entry to the Porsche curve, so there is an access road there.
Yeah, just seeing where it is now. So yeah, he's still sat there. Again, looking at this funky computer next to me. Theoretical best 3:19.2 from Lopez there. So if he'd have put together his third sector onto those 2 fastest, 1 and 2, he'd have bumped up. He'd have bumped the number 8 car off the current top slot. So yeah, the pace is in both cars. They're obviously changing setup slightly with them and just trying to fine tune, getting ready for the qualifying.
But interesting to see at the same time, Romain Dumas in the Rebellion 3 was able to go faster than him through Sector 1. It's been a story so far through both free practice sessions that Rebellion have had more pace in that first sector.
Because, why do you think that is?
I'm asking you, Peter, and you can ask somebody else.
It's lighter, isn't it? It's more nimble, the car.
There you go, the safety vehicle getting onto circuit, getting the tow hitch on, and they can just tow that car to safety.
So I believe that they're keeping all their hybrid boost for the straight, and in the first sector they're running normally, whereas the Rebellion in that has all the power and the downforce, and when they get round to the straight, that's when the Toyota uses their boost to be quick down the straights.
Yeah.
Wow, that's the second Rebellion IDEX Sport car just coming back to the pit lane. So it's taken a good, 45 minutes is that since the crash, just for the team to get the car back. Yeah, makes it impossible for them to make qualifying, probably impossible to make tonight.
Yeah, and then they will be looking for some kind of exemption to make sure that car can run in the race, because the only opportunity to race at night is tonight. We don't have a practice session on Friday night, and none of those drivers have experience of Le Mans before. All 3 are rookies in that team, so a big uphill struggle for that particular machine. Less concern really for the red IDEX Sport car, because at least that has 3 expert drivers in that have the knowledge of running Le Mans at night, and therefore maybe more of a case as a team manager to the race control, race director to get an exemption.
Yeah, I think the 17 IDEC car will be all right because they're ELMS champions.
Yeah.
Last year. And then Luc Chatin, I think, was on pole position last year. Yeah, wasn't he? That car, yeah. So all 3 of them fairly experienced.
As you can see, the rear end with absolutely no damage. That car very much went in front end straight in, and the damage is the front really. That right front tire looks like it's pretty much on where it should be.
I mean, the lack of activity on that car kind of is telling, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you would expect the mechanics to be jumping on it straight away, wouldn't you? Depending on how much work they're doing on the other car to get that running first. Would you prioritise one for the other to be able to get one qualifying?
Well,
in that situation.
Like Patrice Lafarge. His son Paul Lafarge is one of them. Probably a priority, yeah. But I don't. They'll do their best to fix the cars up. They'll have plenty of spares.
We have just under 27 minutes remaining. We'll have a 15-minute break after that session, and then we'll go straight into our qualifying session in approximately half an hour to 45 minutes time. Drivers assessing the damage the first time they've had a chance to look at the car.
A little bit of shoulder shrugging going on there, which is not a good sign either.
Yeah, so the guys from Orica and expert chassis guys will be having a look, and the team obviously, the minute they see, you know, it can be a wishbone, it can be a steering arm, it punches into the chassis, and I think the regulation here is if the chassis is damaged, you're out. You can't change your chassis once the FP1. Once FP1 starts, that's it. Force majeure. Okay, so they would have to, if the chassis is damaged, they'd still be able to start the race, but they would have a new chassis, but with force majeure rule, they would be allowed to replace it. This is the Rebellion car that's having an engine change at the moment, so you can see the guys are fitting the new engine, I think that is in now. And they've got all the water lines, fuel lines, oil lines, coolers, rear suspension. You find that they normally have a whole back end built up, so it's relatively simple, but takes a bit of time, and now they're putting, that's a good sign, they're putting the floors back on, which means the engine's all done.
7, 6,
so
5,
that car might
4,
get out in the last
3, 2, 1. Full course yellow removed. Full course yellow removed.
That was Eduardo Freitas on race control, counting us back down to green. And we are back to full clear running with just under 25 minutes remaining. And once again, not much point really circulating under full course yellow conditions. So many of the cars came into the pits and now are able to go back out on the circuit. A long, long lap under full course yellow conditions.
So that 33 car looks like it just got towed out of the way, stopped out there. Unfortunate, because I mean the car seemed okay, and I'm sure if it had made it back to the pits, they could have probably got it fixed and possibly back out again. But they should be able to get it out for qualifying.
Sector 2 usually is around 80 seconds for LMP2, and it was 217 seconds for Antonio Felix da Costa, who now comes into the pits. Another over 100 seconds lost in the third sector of the lap under full course yellow conditions. And just as he gets to the opportunity to go back to green flag, he brings the car in. Door is open. Car goes up on the jacks and on the dollies. I think that'll be spun round. Will it be spun round and put into the garage? There's no other driver waiting to get into the car, so it looks as though he may be staying in.
I think with 16 minutes to go, you'd be tempted to just leave the driver in, wouldn't you?
Well, but also get it ready for qualifying. At the end of the day, not a lot of time left before, surely for a team like that, it's the focus of making sure you're in the top 5. In fact, the top 5 cars in LMP2 are all in pit lane right now. Team Racing Netherlands. Fritz van Aert has been in that car almost the whole session when it's been out on track, so making sure he gets plenty of lap time.
I'll tell you what, if you look at the 6th place LMP2 car, they're only a 10th behind. It means they've got the pace, so they should be pushing now.
Yeah, Martin and co are going to be commentating on 5th spot and the bubble, you know, the crazy bubble, who's in and who's out. because ultimately first position, second position, third doesn't really matter today. That will be set tomorrow in Hyperpole, but 5th to 6th is crucial.
GT Am, just to give you a quick update, our friend Paul Delalana currently holds the top place. I'm sure it's not Paul holding the top place, but his car is in the Aston Martin. So Aston looking quite strong here, as they did this morning. And Felipe Fraga in the team project car currently in the other Porsche, doing a great job. And one of the, I think, most starts at Le Mans this year, Manuele Collard is P3. 24 starts at Le Mans, quite a good record, and has competed in, I think, all of the classes here over the years. Yeah.
One thing we didn't actually pick up on in that last burst of activity was the Aston Martin going up into P1 in Pro. Maxime Martin aboard that car right now. It is on circuit, and I think it may have well been Maxime that did the lap, just 2.5 tenths faster than the 91 of Porsche, and then the 92 is in third spot with the best of the Ferraris, the 51 in third, but as we mentioned previously, only about half a second separating all 4 of those. Aston Martin 95, the Dane Train in 5th position, leaving the other works car of the 71 Ferrari missing out of that top 5.
Looking at Jan Magnussen, again, he must be another driver who's had a lot of starts here. 21 starts here, yes. So obviously, long-time Corvette driver, now sitting aboard a Ferrari. Must be quite a difference for him.
It's lucky I'm here to give you all this advice on start numbers, etc., isn't it, Peter?
Yes, yeah, thanks for that, Jamie.
Yeah, just how different do all these GT cars feel? Ultimately, they're built to the similar regulations, but the balance of a Ferrari versus a Corvette must be very, very different.
It is. I mean, my point in case is that I've been driving a BMW M6 GT3 car. I've gone to a 911, and it's the world of difference. And it's taken me quite some time to get used to it again. I used to drive Porsches all the time, and the BMW, you know, it's the difference for me is that the BMW is very stable in the high-speed corners, high and medium-speed corners, whereas the Porsche a little bit more loose, but the Porsche in the tighter corners has a lot more grip and nimbleness. And so it must be the same with the Ferrari. I used to, again, drive a Ferrari now and again, and I just couldn't get on with the feeling of it. It just didn't work for me, and you know, I only did about 3 or 4 races and just didn't progress in the Ferrari ranks.
Cheeto Lopez 200s up on the first sector in the 7 car.
Yeah, as we took a quick look into the United Autosports garage, both cars in pit lane, one of which very much not going out for the rest of this session, and you get the feeling that those that have got through their program well are happily preparing now for qualifying, which comes up in effectively half an hour's time. So really there is no gap between this practice session, and I think it may well be the style at the end of this session. We might not see so many of the cars that are really aiming to be in the top 5 out on track. I think they'll all come back in and just get themselves settled and ready. Pachito Lopez on a push again, within touching distance of his fastest lap so far.
Just saw the Porsche there in the pits. I think it was the Win Porsche. I was just looking at its fuel filler, how they've sort of sculptured it into the bonnet of the Porsche. You can see this Porsche approaching now on the left-hand side there. You've got this sort of hole, and it's just for the fuel filler to be out, instead of it propping out of the bodywork, they've put it into the bodywork for less drag. Quite a thing. Is that new this year, or that was last year? That was last year. I didn't notice that last year.
Every little bit counts, doesn't it? Every little detail is thought about. Just keeping half an eye on the 7 Toyota, because it was the last sector of the lap that it hasn't been so fast in so far. It's matched its best sectors in sector 1 and 2, so if it gets a clear run of things through the final sector, we might see an improvement from Pachito Lopez, aiming for that 19.7 that the 8 car has managed to do. They've only done a 21.0 so far in the 7. They've been working through their various different programs, and in fact, Pachito bringing his car into the pits and therefore not once again completing the lap. We get so excited by these guys pushing, and then they don't manage to finish the laps. Michael Christensen in the 92 Porsche is another to be pushing right now. Best Sector 1, best Sector 2. Is this going to push him ahead of the Aston Martin in that battle for GT Pro Honours fastest lap? As we watch Pachito in pit lane with the Toyota.
He's going to cross the line any second. He's just come out the Ford chicane. Yep.
Yes, fastest in GT Pro for the Porsche of Michael Christensen. And it is a good couple of tenths clear of the rest of the field. That is showing your hand. 0.6 of a second faster, 5.5 tenths of a second faster than the Aston Martin. So all of a sudden you get a feeling that there was some sandbags taken out of that particular Porsche, and that perhaps is a bit more of the pace that they all can do when it comes to qualifying. Looked like Toyota were making a nose change, Peter. You were following the pictures there?
I was actually watching Matteo Caroli driving the Porsche there. I was just going to check. Has he moved up the order at all?
Going back to Michael Christensen, who's just gone quickest, that crew have done a phenomenal job in the last, say, 12 months. Winning Spa 24-hour. They really have gelled as a team, and as you know, they've got that perfect blend of they're young guys, but they've got quite a good amount of experience, and they've now got some really top class, top GT racing, big endurance races like Spa 24 under their belt, under the wing, and they are the complete package as a crew, I think.
And he's going for another one, fast again through the first sector of the lap. So very much wanting to get some representative lap times in at the end of this session as we take a look at the 60 Iron Lynx Ferrari. One of 13 AF Corsa run Ferraris in the field, although actually they're not 13 Ferraris, there's 10 or 11 Ferraris, and then they're running a couple of LMP2 cars as well.
89 car with...
That's their second warning.
Yeah, black and white flag now, so the next one will be a penalty. That's your last warning.
Porsche pushing again. We finally go on board. Maybe had a little bit of a slipstream from that Ferrari as well. Equal best in the first and second sectors of the lap. An improvement, but only by a little bit. Is this going to be the lap where he dives into pits on the third sector and we don't get a chance to see him complete?
Quite often, no, because you can get 2 laps out of the tyre. Depends what tyre he's on. If he's on a medium tyre, or even maybe a soft, because it's not too bad, the temperature, he might be getting a second. It's nice for the driver to get a feel into it, how it's going. And quite often, that first one was a bit of a banker, and now he's really pushing because he's got, you know, two green sectors.
But I think the track temp is going to be into the 40s, isn't it? So it's on the screen somewhere.
You've got the controller.
I shall tell you, I'm full of information.
Here he is, throwing the car into the Porsche curves. The back end didn't look like it particularly stuck at that first input. Slightly wiggling around as he threw it in there, but now it's more settled. There is a slower car ahead. Will he catch it in the wrong moment? I think it might be okay. And that's, I think that's the Iron Dams car. Down towards the Ford chicane. If he goes left, he's coming into the pits. He goes right, therefore takes the first faster part of the Ford chicane. Down one more gear, throw the car across the curbs for the second part of the chicane over the line, and it is slower. He did get held up, I think, a little bit, only fractionally slower. But definitely that is what they can do then. And Gianmaria Bruni is also doing the same thing now from third in GT Pro.
Quicker, 1/10 quicker. So the GT boys, the Porsche GT boys have obviously gone, right lads, you can have a little practice prior to quali. AMR have obviously decided not to show their hand, they're just focusing on the race. Quite often, you do not actually get to practice qualifying here. The teams are not really that interested. They just want to focus on the race because it's 24 hours long and that's where you make up most of your time. And whether or not you start P1 or P3 doesn't make a huge difference to your result.
And ultimately, really good data to do it right now, knowing that in 20 minutes' time, qualifying itself will be happening with not a huge amount of difference in track temperature, ambient temperature. It's going to be like this.
Yeah, 41 degrees the track is and 29 degrees ambient, so still pretty warm.
Well, I reckon they're going to be a medium tire then. A soft, definitely.
No.
It's not right for a soft tire. Maybe even hard, depending on each manufacturer is a bit different with their windows and their crossover points between the soft and the medium and the hard.
So on board there with the 92 car, getting a bit of fresh air in his hand.
I think going back to the lack of time they've got this year, and what you said about qualifying in the race, yeah, it's more likely this year than ever that they'll be running a full tank, just checking out their race runs, because as you say, that's the important thing, being absolutely spot on for the race.
Haven't really seen much from the works, of course, Ferraris so far in this session. Certainly watching the first page of timing, they only have 3 GT Pro cars, and they have been always Porsches and Aston Martins. And the 51 car comes over the line and does not improve or does not show. Now, Gianmaria Bruni's in the final sector of the lap. He is not far off what Michael Christensen managed. A 10-minute stop and go for 89. Now, we saw that earlier on. If you were abusing track limits too much, then you have to basically sit in the pits for 10 minutes, and that is exactly what's been handed to the 89 car. And that means basically that is end of session for him. Not going to hurt them too badly, I would have thought.
Through the final chicane comes Jimmy. It's been held up in the last sector, 53.5. Some 0.8 off Michael Christensen's time of 52.7. So traffic for the GT car can be a GTM car, but it can also be an LMP1 or LMP2 car that is overtaking you, and you lose your lap time because you're being overtaken. Depends where it is. So tricky one always for GT Pro and LMP2. You're always piggy in the middle. You've got cars to overtake, but you've also got cars overtaking you from LMP1, whereas always easier to be actually the slowest or the quickest car, I think, just to be overtaking or being overtaken.
And sometimes it's better to just lift off, lose the time, lose half a second rather than lose 2 seconds when the prototype dives down your inside.
Here is Ollie Jarvis for Algarve Pro Racing. Very, very timely shot for us. Ollie obviously not in his race suit. Nick Tandy is, and he's in the car. So the 16 G-Drive Racing by Algarve that we have not seen run at all really in this session had some issue. They spent the whole session fixing it, and they fixed it just in time for Tandy to get himself 1 or 2 shakedown laps, and then they'll be throwing themselves straight into qualifying with only FP1 really as information and as experience, because as we said before, none of those drivers other than Ryan Cullen have even sat in that car before this weekend.
Yeah, and I think they're probably putting Tandy in because he's the most experienced driver in that car. He's probably the one that will do the qualifying, and the others will have to wait their turn. So because he's got the most experience, it depends on the problem, of course, but he'll be the one that will be able to give a diagnosis as accurately as possible and as quickly as possible.
Now, how much experience does he have in LMP2 though? Yeah, 2015 he was in an LMP2 car, because of course being attached to Porsche as a works manufacturer, it's either that he's been in the LMP1 car or in the GT Pro car as the 61. Not sure exactly why the 61 car was waving, but there was no one he was waving past, but obviously having a nice time of things, and comes into the pits. The Toyotas are pushing. Both Brendan and Mike Conway, 8 and 7 in the second sector of the lap. Mike Conway's caught something in the second sector and lost a bit of time, but Brendan Hartley is equal to the best time that the 82 car has had, with 7.5 minutes remaining, as the 92 car GTE Pro class leader now back into pit lane. And a lot of cars now coming in to the pits, getting themselves prepared for our qualifying session. Anyone really that's concerned, and obviously LMP1 cars don't need to be concerned, anybody who's really concerned will want as much preparation time as possible to get the cars. Will they have a qualifying spec and then work on race setup tomorrow, and it'll just be a setup for the whole week?
I would think they'll have done mostly race setup today, and they probably would have bolted on maybe right now, or gone light on fuel just to see what it's like, because as we talked about, it's important to make that top 5 qualifying so that you're in the high proportion. But once you've made it into that top 5, actually where you start is not. It's going to be about the race setup from there on.
Now Martin Haven has stuck all the things on the piece of paper on the wall. I've just seen that they've changed the way they mark the marshal posts, so they're no longer the distance away. They are simply marked 1 through to post 35. So there's a slightly different piece of information from this year as opposed to previous years, which was always very illogical having marshal post 131, but because we never had number 130, but now we've just got marshal post 1 to 35. So that'll help all of you guys at home understand a little bit more as to what's going on. Here is the German Nick Tandy. Didn't realise he'd adopted his German nationality.
I wonder whether he's taken a German license, and that's why he's running the German flag.
Well, I can check that.
He's certainly on it. There's no hanging around. He's pushing there.
I did have license numbers on my list of entry fee. Here we go. Nick Tandy. British license.
Well spotted, though. Well spotted, yeah.
5 minutes remaining of this session then. Opportunity for the Feldmeyer team to get themselves a practice pit stop in. And the 2 Toyotas are still running very, very well up the field.
So, they're Feldmeyer are looking to do a lap. So of course, if they cross the line before, in the next 5 minutes, they'll be able to complete a lap. And tune that qualifying performance.
Yeah, well, it'll take them 4 minutes to go round, so you'll cross the line with 40 seconds to go. And
bang on, yeah.
Do you think we'll see that in the qualifying session? Will it be the last to the flag?
Possibly. Depends on the traffic situation.
Yeah. But the track is not going to develop that much in that period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Be surprised, 59 cars, the track is a living thing, it's an evolving thing, and it's constantly changing, and every single bit of rubber that goes down adds another 0.02% or whatever it is. So yeah, I do think 45 minutes, isn't it, as qualifying? 45 minutes with 60 cars going around, that's significant. And the temperature dropping, of course. So Porsche team improving again in the middle sector. Jimmy Bruni.
Now, Kenta Yamashita was one of the fastest cars out there in free practice 1. I don't think he's had the opportunity to be in the 33 high-class racing machine so far, as we watch Dempsey Proton come towards the line. They look like they're on it in the GT Am category, but Kenta Matashita is on it in LMP2 as well. We should see that car move up in the next couple of moments. Matt Campbell over the line, and 0.6 of a second faster than the nearest GT Am car. Great effort.
Good improvement, that.
Nobody's got screen 2 on, though.
Well, it's definitely is P1 in the class, and now 0.6 clear as he goes off at the Dunlop chicane.
It's actually 4th fastest in GT overalls. That's a great effort. Board A, about 0.7 off in the Rizzi Competizione. That's a GT Pro car, even though it's not a kind of a works AF Corsa run machine. It is in GT Pro. And a change a bit further down. Nick Tandy goes on his first lap, 3:33.4, so 19th position in the G-Drive Racing by Algarve, not to be mixed up with the G-Drive Racing car, which is up there in 6th position.
News in from IDEC. Unfortunately, neither car will be out today. They're attempting to get the 28 car out tomorrow, and no news yet on the 17 car, so no more action today from IDEC Sport.
Very, very tough for everybody down there at IDEC.
Yeah, it did look from the body language and the lack of activity that they kind of resigned themselves to spending all night fixing those cars.
Yeah, but with that less experienced squad, there has to be question marks as to whether they will be able to run in the race if they're not able to do any night practice, which the only opportunity is tonight. So perhaps a little bleak.
I mean, they'll still be allowed to start. They'll have to start at the back of their class on the grid. How long have we got in FP4 tomorrow, running wise?
1 hour.
1 hour
in the morning, so as well.
They're not going to get all 3 drivers to do 10 laps, because unless one of them's already probably done 10 laps.
Yeah, they did 29 laps in total.
So maybe there's only one of them. So then it's possible.
But they haven't done any night laps.
No, so penalty for sure. But yeah.
It's a difficult situation, that, because you take, you know, we talked about already. If you've got a very experienced driver who's first time here. And then you say, okay, fair enough, we think you can do it. But if you've got 3 rookie drivers and they're not that well experienced, it's a tough call by ACO to decide on what route to take with them.
Yamashita, we're watching on the screen there, up to P4 in LMP2. So he's throwing high-class racing into the mix for the top 5 in qualifying a bit later on. Good effort on his first lap, and he's pushing again for another one. With 23 seconds remaining, he is able to complete that lap.
Tandy up there as well. Tandy's done a 3:33, and he's currently green. Already moved the car up to 19th in LMP2.
And this is his second lap of the weekend, is it?
Yes.
So, yeah, fair one.
Yeah, because they did 1 lap already. He's now on lap 4. So yeah, he'll improve by a few seconds on this one. Also, Mike Conway in the Toyota is just under a 10th up.
He also improved on his last lap, got himself into the 20s rather than he was a 21.0 for most of this session, and he's now coming into pit lane. So we may well have seen an improvement from Mike Conway in the 7 there, but at the end of this session, they're going to end up with the 8 car being the faster of the 2 Toyotas over the 7. And then they have an advantage of about 2.5 seconds over the Rebellion number 3 car.
So yeah, we're just looking at the previous FP1, and the car did do 33 laps. So it's not that they haven't done any, but it's the first laps they've done in this session. So
5 laps completed for Tandy, and P16 improves to a 3:32, so not a bad effort for that car to go out there pretty cold. Done no running apart from this morning, of course.
Well, gives them a good idea of whether the car is running enough to then participate and compete in qualifying, because qualifying is 15 minutes away, and the start of qualifying, a 45-minute session. You really want to be out there as much as possible to allow you to get a clear lap. You can't just kind of bank on 15 minutes of a session at the end. As we look at the Dempsey car, Matt Campbell, wasn't it? Yeah, who got up into P. He got up into P4 in GT class overall. And here is the other G-Drive car. So this is G-Drive Racing with Mikael Jensen coming into pits. Looks identical to the other one, but run by 2 different teams.
Confusing.
It is a little bit.
They could choose different coloured wing mirrors or visor strip.
Or just different coloured, just a different way of painting it. Yeah. I don't know. So that's it then. That's the end of the session. with the two Toyotas at the head of the field, as we imagine they would be. 2.5 seconds to the Rebellion Racing number 3 car. Question marks over the number 1 machine, did not manage to get lap time in, discovered an issue at the very start of the session, and by the looks of things changed the whole engine. Probably will get a chance to see them out in the qualifying session, but the top 5 from each class go through into Hyperpole, and therefore all of our 5 LMP1 runners will go through into Hyperpole. So really, qualifying for LMP1 this evening does not really matter so much. LMP2, though, is highly contested, and it's the Racing Team Netherlands 29 machine which was fastest in this session, ahead of Hoping Tongue's 37 Jackie Chan DC Racing LMP in second spot, run by Jota. Then the Jota car of Antonio Felix da Costa in third in class. That's the 38 car. Fourth in class, High Class Racing 33. Kenton Yamashita setting that time right at the end of the session. And Mikael Jensen 5th in class. In the end, knocking out both of the United Autosports cars from the top 5. They ended the session early to get themselves prepared for the qualifying session. Alex Brundle's 32 car in 6th position. The 22 car with Paul di Resta in 7th spot in LMP2 class. Panis Racing end the session in 12th spot. Then Dragon Speed, the 21 machine there in 13th spot. Duquin in 14th. Then the second of the Dragon Speed cars in 15th position. Algarve Pro running in 12th in LMP2. And then So 24 by Graf in 13th. Signatech Alpine not having a particularly starring session, 14th in LMP2, Eurasia 15th. Then we look down to the pros, GT Pro, Michael Christensen, Maxime Martin, and fastest GT Am was the Dempsey Protein, Matt Campbell, setting the fastest time, 4th fastest GT car. And as we get down to the back end of the timing screens, got to say, issues for the AF Corsa 52, and that's an AM car, isn't it? The Rebellion car, in the end, the only car not to set a time, the number 1 machine. So that is it. And we will be joining Team A in 10 minutes' time for the qualifying session and the all-important 59 cars on the track qualifying session.